Hey everybody, Nick, Brandon, and Barrett here, also known as Amongst Friends podcast. We're going to continue our conversation on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, our essentially our review, our impressions, things we liked, disliked, and so on. So thanks for joining the chat. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to share those in the message area on Twitch. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Yeah, we'll get started. So guys, hope you're doing good. Where did we leave off last time? I think we were around chapter 10.
No, somewhere in chapter 8. I don't remember. I think the
Oh,
last thing
really?
the last thing we talked about was the date that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, the dates. Okay.
Jumped ahead a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as your closest party member uh, knocks on Cloud's door, they go out and they start to go do some of the different activities, and think like they make it to the theater area where uh, Cloud sees Jesse's portrait up on the wall, which I really like that sentiment. Because I mean, I didn't obviously I didn't play the first, so like, or the original, and you know, all the way through most of the remake, like she was like one of my favorite characters, and her death was kind of gutted me a little bit, but so it was nice seeing that little nod here.
hmm I thought just by the way that it kind of alluded to something at the end of remake, because it shows her like her headband and her gloves, I think, laying on a
Yeah,
desk in a room that's kind of like lit up through the window. And I was thinking, well, I mean, if Biggs is alive, maybe Jesse's alive, but I don't know. I
yeah.
guess nothing in this game followed up on that, I guess. So,
mm. Hey, Chemical Witness. Sorry you're feeling sick today, but I hope you get feeling better.
Yeah.
hey, me too. I'm right there with you, man. That sucks.
It's going around. My son
Yeah,
Milo just got over it yesterday, so he had 101 fever and all that. So
man.
yeah. By any measure, it shouldn't last long. He got better within like 36
Yeah.
hours. So
Ollie had a
but
one
anyway,
night bug, I think, the same,
a
like where
what?
she was like hot, a one night sickness like
Oh.
that. She was literally sick for one night, and ever since she's just been snotty. And then now me and
hmm
Kanan are both feeling the snottiness.
I thought you said 109, and I was like, I'm pretty sure your blood boils at 109 degrees. I was like, yeah, I was like, what are you talking of? No, that's you said one night,
You're like,
so
oh,
that's why I was like,
what?
what?
You're like, yeah, she's
I was
fine.
like, what the hell? Is she an alien?
Yeah,
No, that's
if it's not in the
it
teens,
sucks when kids are
she's
sick.
good.
But no, I'm glad y'all are here. But you were talking about you guys were talking about Jessie. Yeah, she's like one of the looking back on remake, she's like one of the most relatable characters. Like just feels her situation and her behavior feels for the most part feels like the most normal human
Mhm.
type of situation and stuff besides her like oppressive moves she makes on Cloud. But yeah, I had actually forgotten about the whole fact that she performed at the Golden Saucer. So for a minute, I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It brought it back to reality because when she says it in remake, you're just kind of like, oh, okay. It doesn't really mean anything,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't played the original. And then, well, I don't even know if that was a plot point in the original. But it was cool. It was cool seeing that. Um, it gives Jesse a whole lot more story and
Mhm.
character. So yeah, it was cool.
You talk about her oppressive moves on Cloud, but like honestly, like that whole dynamic's kind of like what drew me in initially with the remake, because so many times in movie and video games it's like the male that's pursuing, and like in remake you have all three of these women that are pursuing Cloud, and he just like wants none of it. Like it's like so off-putting to him, and so that whole dynamic kind of drew me in.
Yeah. No, I see. I can understand the appeal.
And then even to this game, I don't know if it's like specific to your partner in this section, but I know there's like a dialogue section between, I think it's like Cloud and Aerith, where like they see her portrait, and Cloud mentions that he knows her, and because Aerith never met her, and I think Aerith asked him, was like, well, was it like were y'all just friends, or was it something more than that? Because she's like, I know how you can be dense about that kind of stuff sometimes. Cloud's like, no, it's just friends. But
Good point. She couldn't be a romance option in part 2. I had to take her out.
But from there, they go into the theater and realize that the show's already over. So then they go to the like the Ferris wheel type ride, where it's shut down, and that's where Kate Seth enters and's like telling about something that's going on. They get back down to like the main square, where they see like a bunch of Shinra guards laid out, which I think we see like a little bit previously that like Barrett's chasing after them. At that point, like the only thing that anybody's seen is that it was somebody with like a gun for an arm, so obviously that's dead giveaway of who everybody suspects it being.
I had one little thing about this part, is that in the original you don't see Dine.
Yeah.
So when everyone's talking about someone going on a rampage with a gun for an arm, you're like, oh shit, he's finally done it. He lost his mind. And this one, you see Dine for like a split second. It's not Barrett. So it kind of took away the like worry that like, oh shit. But I mean, it's like I said before, like this game plays as if everyone's played the original. So like, it's not shy to spoil things ahead for whatever reason. Sometimes I don't really understand them. And this is one of the times where I was like, they hit harder whenever you're worried that Barrett literally just went on a rampage throughout the Golden Saucer. But it already kind of alludes that Dine is the one that. So, I mean, it wasn't like a huge thing. It's just one of those things that's like, that hits harder whenever you think that your party member just killed a bunch of innocent people.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That like, okay, so in the original, the old game, like I had no doubt that it wasn't Barrett for some reason.
Yeah.
It was just like, you
didn't know Dine had a gun for an arm.
Well, you didn't know. No. I mean, like, I knew it wasn't Barrett playing the original. Like, I was like, okay. Barrett didn't do that. It was something about how they told the story. It seemed obvious to me that it didn't make sense that Barrett would do that. I was like, okay, it's an imposter. With the new game, with Rebirth, they did such a good job overall with telling the story and how Barrett was feeling, and like him being on edge. They did such a good job that it would have filled me with a lot more doubt of maybe he did do it, right? Maybe he did go nuts, like, and actually have that if they hadn't have shown Dine for that brief moment to go like, oh no, there's somebody screwing about. So I think you're right. It's like in the past, like the way they told it was so good. I was like, hey, I could believe that Barrett went nuts on these people with his hatred for kind of communism and or consumerism and stuff like that. But yeah, then they showed him. So it's just an interesting creative choice. But I'm with you there.
Not a knock at it. It's just one of those things. Like
I agree though.
Yeah, it was just interesting that they went that route and showing him rather than letting you worry.
Yeah. I'm reading Chemical Witness's comment. Yeah, good point, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a little little tiny thing. I was like, that's interesting, but oh well. At least we know it wasn't Barrett, but everyone thinks it's Barrett. And that just kind of little bit of the like, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, we saw the guy.
Yeah.
So from there they go down into the Dust Bowl, where Cloud and the party's knocked out by a biker gang. They awaken from that and realize they are being held by their leader Gus, and he says he's got Barrett locked up nearby, but he in order to let you out and let you to Barrett, he forces you to enter in the chocobo races, which this whole area, you're searching for different greens and stuff to feed one of the chocobos. I didn't really like this area as much, even though it was a little bit smaller. There was just a lot of little nooks and crannies that you had to go down, and I'm the type that I like to search everything, and I was always getting the feeling I was missing something or I'd missed an area. But
yeah, the exploration of this area was a little just congested, as far as there being random fence walls and random little paths going other way. It kind of reminded me of Wall Market, as far as how just many different ways or even Sector 7 too, just how many different alleyways and paths that are kind of hard to remember which ways to go and stuff. Just definitely not my favorite area of the game.
But I did like the one section that you chase the cactuar down and you end up in this den of just nothing but cactuar. So I just not naively just kind of jumped down in their den, and then I think the first time or two I went in there, I got killed by all the needles that they shoot. But I did like that little section. I'm still not sure. I don't think I've really seen enough of the cactuar to really understand what's going on there, how they're sentient.
I don't
because they've got they've got that cartoon face that none of the other enemies really
hive
have.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of almost like a mascot as a chocobo, just a and I think they're rare encounters in the original too, so you can run across them and kill them and get a little bit of extra stuff from them whenever you do defeat them, but because they're just unnecessarily hard sometimes. But
what about backing up a little bit? Who was the guy, the end of it character who's in charge of that ghetto? The reason I ask is it Troy Baker who plays that character's voice when you get to when you get down to the slums? It sounded so much like him.
I didn't look at any of the extra.
He was super obnoxious, showman type conversation, way over the top, I want to say. And I was like, that sounds like Troy Baker on his.
It's Gus, I think is his name.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let me see.
No, it's not Troy Baker.
It's not?
No, it's
Who am I thinking of?
His name's Jonas Scott. He's been in a bunch of other anime.
Troy Baker.
So this is not Troy Baker. So it wasn't Troy Baker playing Gus.
No.
Huh.
This might be the one game he wasn't in.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, he didn't get a lead role. I didn't let him be Vincent Valentine or anything.
And I like Troy Baker too, but he's in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty good with his voice too, but he's been in so many things now that I think he's running out of versions of himself to
Well, even with the Indiana Jones game coming up soon, as soon as that trailer hit, it's I knew that was him doing a Harrison Ford impersonation. I mean, it was good, but it was still noticeable.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is he probably always has been one of the best people to play a Harrison Ford impersonation just because of his pitch of his voice and everything. It's just that he's already in so much stuff that you recognize it, but probably wouldn't have recognized it if he hadn't have been in so many games. He's actually doing a really good job from the clip they showed in that, but But yeah, well, you can tell that I've been conditioned to look for his voice now in video games to where I think he's
Yeah.
in Rebirth. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
swear to God, I have to watch that clip again and make sure I'm talking about the right character because I was like positive it was Troy Baker. But anyway, so yeah,
I
Cactars.
just want to say this while you're talking about Harrison Ford impersonations. I wish that they would get the guy that narrates a lot of the Star Wars books to do to do voicing for like an animated Harrison Ford in anything because he is spot on. Like,
Really?
yeah, his name's Mark Thompson, and
Hmm.
like and the reason what makes me think about that and y'all talking about that is because I've been playing Battlefront 2's story mode. I started it up this morning because I never completed it because it's for some reason super hard. And I got to the point where Han Solo shows up and it doesn't sound anything like Harrison Ford at all. It just made me think like, why didn't they've got plenty of people that can do a good impersonation. And people that they don't have to pay that much too, I'm sure. People that aren't like Troy Baker, who I'm sure does a great version of it. But yeah, just a random blurb because I was thinking about that earlier today.
That's cool. Check that guy out. I'm looking at him online. So
Yeah, he does.
cool.
He narrates a lot of the books and does a lot of the voices like spot on. But his Han is awesome.
Awesome. Cool.
So once you gather all the greens, like you enter in the chocobo race, and out of like all of the, I don't know if it's just my experience with racing games and stuff, but out of all the mini games in this was by far the easiest one, even on like all the various difficulty levels. Like I don't
Did you
think
do
I
the
ever lost a single chocobo race.
Really?
Did you do the post game ones with the Shinra executive?
I think so.
With it's like that last quest that you can get. It's like party animal or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, and you have to go basically do harder versions of all the mini games. That one I struggled with and actually had to think about like which chocobo ability to use and stuff. But I mean, it was Mario Kart. So
Yeah.
I was like, I can pick that up and it's muscle memory already anyways. Like I'll challenge anybody to Mario Kart confidently. So like whenever I
Nice.
played that first round of Chocobo racing, I was like, this is fucking awesome. And then you see how much there is. Like I think I spent like 3 or 4 hours trying to doing all the races because it was a whole game within a game, as it is with most of the mini games. But like the Chocobo racing, just like, I mean, it felt good. It felt familiar.
Well, that's what I was going to mention because I guess we kind of glossed over that a little bit. But back in Gold Saucer, like with all the different mini games, it was definitely one of those feelings where like they could have just like a standalone like Mario Party type game with all this kind of stuff. And
I wish
I
they
would probably
would.
buy it.
Yeah, just a game of a bunch, like a party game that's all Final Fantasy mini games, and some of them are multiplayer, some of them are, just single player. It doesn't even have to be multiplayer; it'd just be dope if they did. But if like you could race your friends in Chocobo Kart, like that would be so cool.
They could sell that
I mean,
for sure.
I mean,
yeah.
out of all of them, like I know we already talked about the fighting, the brawling game, and I wouldn't have had as much problem with it if they would just explain the controls a little bit better. The only one I didn't really like was the space shooting one.
Oh, Galaga.
Yeah,
That one was okay. Um, it got harder towards like the last one where like if you didn't kill everything before the end, um, you weren't getting the win. But
Gummy mission. Reeked of gummy missions from Kingdom
yeah,
Hearts
that's
2.
it. Gummies. It was
yeah,
gummy ships.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
And
That's what it was.
and not the worst type of gummy. It wasn't Kingdom Hearts 1 level gummy ship,
Yeah,
but I
gummy
had
ships
their
got better
fingerprints
later. I
all
never
over
had that
them.
much
They
of a
did.
problem with them after Kingdom Hearts 1.
It was really just the first one that was just
Yeah.
miserable. The others wasn't so bad. But yeah, I was like, yep, this is gummy missions. I kind of loved it for that. Because it reminded you that it was a lot of the same people worked on Kingdom Hearts. So that's kind of a reoccurring theme, Kingdom Hearts comparisons.
I should bring up though, and what Chemical Witness is saying makes me think of it. He said the Chocobo GP on Switch is very fun. I don't know which one that is, but I know that there's a bunch of like Final Fantasy games that are like, spin-off kind of games on the Switch, and I haven't really looked too much into them.
Mhm.
But recently, Square Enix has basically said that they're going to be looking at the Switch more, especially with the new Switch
Mhm.
coming out, as far as releasing stuff onto it. Um, so, I mean, the Switch seems like the perfect hub for something like that. A game of mini games that are all Final Fantasy-esque. Like, um, but yeah. So hopefully, the Switch is going to get more Final Fantasy love in the future.
Which is a good thing.
And
'Cause,
then the
in
only other
Japan, the PS5 has like the lowest sales in Japan, but the Switch is like the number one console.
Mm,
So
interesting.
like they're trying to combat that by eventually putting more stuff on it.
Hmm.
and then the one other mini game I kind of had a question about how y'all feel about it was the like the G-Bike mini game, because I'm just trying to think of it like within the lore. I mean, it was essentially like replaying like the chase missions from remake and
Hmm.
stuff. But like within lore, how does that like how does that make sense? That that would be a
Well,
mini game because only your
Doesn't
you got to
characters
get
doesn't
kind of
Cloud his
know about
motorcycle,
that.
dude, and I want to be able to do it whenever I want. I want to be able to put Cloud on that motorcycle at any point. So a mini game that could be all, virtual reality. Why
I
not?
just mean like within the lore, it seems like that's like the one game that's more fan service than anything.
Yeah, I could say there's a couple of them that are ultimately fan service, but the motorcycle one was definitely like, because that in the first game that was locked in a mission, so you'd have to replay that mission to do that part. And I'd say, I mean, there's definitely people out there that liked it. Yeah, Chemical Witness said Advent Children Cloud on a motorcycle is what I wanted. So, you
That'd
gotta,
be cool, actually.
yeah. I hope that they give us like some sort of, I mean, maybe in the next game, but like I want his outfit from Advent Children with like the
Mm.
shoulder cape and shit.
Yeah,
Like,
His
that'd be
sword
pretty
would be
cool.
cool
and
too,
the
but
the
that's
fusion
that's a
sword,
lot.
yes, with all the little
Yeah.
sword. Yes, that would be so cool.
I thought I don't know, after the Johnny mission, which I know we beat to death, like, I don't know, there's just certain parts of the game where it just feels like it goes into, and then maybe this is all Final Fantasies, um, but where it just goes into like a fan fiction-y type section where
Mm,
it's not necessarily canon. There's no rules for telling that part of the story for the world. It's just you kind of just go off on this little narrative adventure and come back and no one ever mentions it again, like and yeah, when stuff like that pops up, I don't know, there's just like a switch for me. And what's funny is like I don't feel that way about a lot of games, right? Like I'm like, oh, they just ruined this, but for somehow they make it work in Final Fantasy. So yeah, that's it didn't bother me. And I
I feel
really
like
didn't even think about it.
it made the like extremeness of the Golden Saucer work a lot better too, with the Proto Relic mission that you're doing that goes to uh, all
Mhm.
the Cactar realms, and those are all reactors that are powering it's like four giant reactors that are all powering the Golden Saucer. So like it generates a lot of power, and that's kind of what went wrong with Corel in general. But like it just adds more to like all the fanciness of and how much crap they do within the Golden Saucer that there's all these reactors down there too, and you get to go down in them and tells you a little bit about them.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Corel and the reactors, but I think we're at the point after the Chocobo races where we get a flashback. Um, it's like just after the reactor explosion with Down and Barrett uh, trying to help the villagers while the village is burning, and
Hmm.
Don slips off a cliff, and saving Barrett, and as they like they lock their arms together, is when Scarlet emerges and just totally like obliterates both their arms. So here we get the origin story of how they both got their guns. And that's where
that was heavy.
Yeah, for sure. We also get the revelation that Marlene is actually Don's daughter. And like at this point, this was like the exact moment where Barrett's telling me like, "Oh, you didn't relate to Barrett before, but you will now." And so, I obviously the circumstances are a lot different, but you know, being a step parent, it kind of has some of that weight there that you're. That you know you're taking on like this big responsibility that you know necessarily wasn't, you know, it wasn't necessarily something like you sought after, but you know it's you know just a noble responsibility that you take up because you have to.
Yeah, and I don't know. It makes me. I love Barrett that much more whenever, like, you think about like he's an extremist. You know, he reacts the way that he does, but he's got such a soft spot for, you know, a kid that you know wasn't his, but he's got this duty to raise and take care of her as if she was his own, and you know, like he could have left and not turned back and said screw everything, but he would, you know, that was his best friend, and he wasn't going to, you know, leave his kid behind. I don't know. I absolutely love that part of Barrett. Just,
I think in the flashback that it also shows that was it Barrett's girlfriend / wife, like was she actually pregnant at the time? I want to say it was like mentioned or something along those lines.
I can't remember. I can't remember
either. She may have been. I don't know.
But yeah, the thing about Barrett, like you said, it ends up showing that he's just this incredibly caring, you know, compassionate person. And a lot of his, if not all of his anger, he's not even necessarily mad at Shinra. He's like mad at himself for trusting Shinra and for pushing that. And like, you know, they're still guilty of what they did, but you know, he feels all this like hatred towards himself, and that's typically why when he's a jerk in the game, that's why he's being that way. But it was cool because I remember at least feeling in the original game, and I think you see it in this game, is like he starts being a little less angry after that whole mission. So yeah,
it's like he found a little bit of peace.
Yeah. Definitely.
And just them getting their arms shot up like that and full, you know, like a full cut scene was just like, holy shit.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it made good sense though, because I remember thinking like, oh really? There's another guy with a machine gun arm, and Barrett knows him and stuff. And I remember like at some point hearing that story, just kind of rolling my eyes and like, okay, it's a typical like yin and yang type thing. But it really makes sense when you think about that scene where he's got him holding on to his friend by the arm, and then they get
like
shot.
He's always going to carry that weight, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
but it makes sense that how it happened, why they're both missing an arm. You know, it made a lot of sense with how they told that story.
I like how they both went their separate ways and didn't know each other was alive, and both got guns for arms. It shows how close they were ideally. You know? Yeah,
that's some cultural similarities or something. They grew up in
that's
the
just
same
like
town.
what people do when they lose appendages in this world.
That's gross. Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst idea. It's better than having a nub, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then from
But I
there,
thought,
we're like
I'm
back
sorry,
in.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, do you want to move forward, or is there something else?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's the last thing we covered? Like, where are we at in this?
So like we're going like back to present day where um, Barrett finds Diane locked up in that shed, which Diane's pretty delusional and suspects that Barrett's like in with Shinra, and so that starts the boss fight. And it's a pretty good boss fight. I thought it was pretty cool at like one point where Diane like magnetizes like a lot of the metal around and like creates this like huge arm.
Mm.
But yeah, overall, I thought that was a really good one of the better boss fights of the game, especially with kind of the story with it too. It's like because in lore, like you don't really want to have to fight this guy, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, there's something really heavy about him trying to basically kill himself, like right there, like he was just done. And I think in the original, he just falls off a cliff. I feel like it happens kind of quick, but you get more time with him here, where him and I think it's more for Barrett's sake to like process and understand that at this point in his life he's too far gone. Like he had to get to a point to where he felt like there was nothing. He's done what he could to at least protect this guy's legacy, but at this point, I mean, he's lost. But there's something super visceral about a game like this, and someone's literally like screaming that they're gonna kill themselves with their gun armed to their head, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of crazy, but I mean, very heavy. I felt like it was good. I feel like I didn't like that he didn't really. I didn't feel like there was enough about Marlene in their conversation, though, other than like him leaving the photo with her, or leaving the photo of her with him. Now I could be misremembering something, but like I don't. The whole time I was like, just tell him that his daughter's alive. Like tell him that you've done everything you could and you've protected her and raised her, and it may have gotten to that point eventually, but I felt like it should have happened sooner. I feel like it happened later in the conversation. They're like kind of talking about their past for a long time, and I felt like the one thing that might bring him to his senses is mentioning that Marlene's still alive, like, and she's safe.
Yeah.
And he kind of waited till the last minute. I could be remembering that wrong.
And it's one of those things where, like, in general, with like storytelling, with like movies and stuff, it is like one of those instances where, just in general, I have issues with some movies like that, where like the whole conflict or the whole scene could be resolved if that's just what they start out with and tell exactly what happened. And so many times in movies and games and TV and stuff, where I see it, where it's like, whatever this conflict is, like, so they like beat around the bush, or it's like, well, I can't really tell you, and this is one of those situations where, like, he may have been able to start off with this, but waits until after the boss fight to tell him that she's alive. And I think, like, at first Don's kind of happy to see that, but like instantly like gets mad at Barrett because it seems like it's something he took from him, but also there's like shame and guilt for, like, what's she gonna think of me seeing me like this. And also,
he
like,
hates himself, so how could, like,
and he kind of gave up on searching for her, so he's got that guilt of that too. So but he gets to go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, I was gonna say I felt a little bit differently, I think, than you guys did about it. Like, it made sense to me. Okay, so when Barrett tells him that Marlene's still alive, that if I recall that moment, he's like, "Oh my God!" The expression on Barrett's face was like, "Oh yeah, you think she's dead? That makes sense." Like, but I know she's not. And then he's like, oh my God, dude, like she's alive. Like, do you not realize that? So it's almost like he has that moment. Is it a little stupid that he wouldn't mention it sooner? For sure, but I think I don't know what I read in between the lines was like Barrett was like so obsessed with his own guilt, like that's all he thinks about. Like all this other stuff that does still matter, he's not bringing up. Like Marlene is still alive. Like hey,
she's staying with some random woman.
what about the fact? Well, yeah, what about the fact too that like Barrett's on this big grand mission to save the world, I think that like he's so obsessed with what he did wrong and how bad Diane's making him feel that it really clouds like rational thinking about the stakes in the situation that's at hand. But yeah, I mean I totally get his own things that could have mentioned, but I believed for whatever reason that it made sense that Barrett didn't mention it yet, and then when he did. Yeah, I would agree with you. Like Dine basically couldn't even deal with the concept of having hope or recovering anymore after he killed all these innocent people. It's easier for him just to keep going insane. So, yeah, for some reason it worked for me. I don't know.
It didn't
but that
work
could be
for me. It was just like I remember being like, I don't know, like
why not?
I felt like I mean, I knew there couldn't be a different outcome. There wasn't going to be a different outcome where Dine's like, oh, really? I'm good now. But I feel like there was because we were getting more of a moment between them. I was like, give this guy some peace earlier. And I wanted it earlier on, I think. And then I felt like by the time he starts to give him that answer, you knew it was too late. Which, I mean, it makes sense for how the story's supposed to progress, but it's like Brandon said, it's like that movie where if movies where if someone would just say something sooner, it might help this whole situation. They may have not fought, but
I think you're right. They wouldn't have, but it made sense why he didn't say
and I
it.
also just wanted him to have that proud dad moment too.
Yeah.
To Dine. Like you were my best friend and I've protected your daughter all these years, and I don't know. I just wanted more there, I guess, like more of them to have that moment where, but him as a character, I guess, just still isn't there yet.
Maybe.
But we get to see Dine kind of go out with some honor. Shinra troops show up. He starts unloading on all them, and he pretty much acts as Barrett's shield essentially, and takes all the gunfire. And then Barrett takes his gun from him. And then they move on to the I guess Palmer, Rude, and Elena show up where we go like directly, and it does this a couple times in the game, but we go like directly from like one boss fight into another.
Yeah.
And this one's like a little more silly because like he drops down in this mech that's literally a frog. Which I don't like Palmer, but I did like the design of the mech.
Yeah, the animation was incredible, I thought.
Yeah.
The intercut cut scenes in battle and stuff, I think are some of the most impressive stuff visually, and the little story bits they tell. And they turn these fights. The only thing that pisses me off is like half the time you're like, I think I fought this between the past two games. I fought some of these characters, it seems like, several times, and then they just get away or whatever. You're like, are they still not dead? And I can't remember if you really kill them or not. But I feel like there's a few moments where you're just like, how is this person still alive? But no, I loved that fight. And I also loved, was that before or after, like, there's the whole helicopter chase and stuff, and you're shooting a gun that's buried on the back of the mech?
It's before the chase.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because I typically don't like those sections in games.
Which ones?
Like any kind of like chase like that where like you're shooting.
Oh, okay.
Because usually and
even Uncharted.
Yeah, for the most part. Because and don't get me wrong, like it makes sense to an extent where some of the mechanics are harder because you're in this vehicle that is moving, so it is harder to like line up shots and stuff. But there are some where like, and it may just be down to like controller like sensitivity and stuff, but there are times where whatever you're shooting is moving much faster than like you can like move
Oh
and
yeah.
aim. And so yeah, I typically don't like these sections. I mean there are exceptions, but yeah, I remember dying at this section like 3 or 4 times just because I kept having issues like that.
Yeah, I think I lost to it once. I didn't particularly like this fight. I didn't like the like vehicle combat, you know. I don't know. Um, yeah, but
I liked
I don't
it.
really have much to say about it.
It was exciting.
Cinematically,
different.
there was the cool stuff, but
Yeah,
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really care for Palmer's character, and
Mm-mm.
I don't know. Not hating
He's
on
a
it, just
goblin,
like
dude.
yeah, just reminded me of like he might be what's the guy that runs the girls club in Wall Market, Corneo,
Oh
Don
yeah,
yeah,
Corneo.
yeah,
Corneo.
Kind of like
yeah.
I like them about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then that kind of rounds out that chapter a little bit. Dio arrives with the ATV and
Hmm.
pretty much starts to gives the ATV to the party, and then Dio
The bug.
fights with Rude.
Then we get that cut scene where we see Reeve uh, change the mugshots.
Yeah, which
Um,
that cutscene would have made more sense, like back before the parade, because that
mhm.
was like my whole issue with that section is being able to walk through there and not being recognized. And
Yeah,
it's like that scene would have made more sense like a few chapters
the only
earlier.
person that recognizes you is Rufus in that in that time. Like, okay,
And
you get all these people on board. Like that, some random person under Junon recognizes you, and all these Shinra executives that are hunting you down don't recognize who you are. Nah, what can you
Eh.
do?
so I have in my notes here, like at the end of this chapter, we go back to section 5, or sector 5, and
Mm.
Zach's hunting for Biggs. But I can't remember if this was like their bigger moment or not, or if that happens later on.
This isn't the moment. No, I don't think it is. That's later. This is just whenever, because they have a few. They may not have like a few conversations, but he does start hunting for Biggs before we get the path moment where he chooses one way or the other.
Yeah.
I don't think they still like chapter 11 or 12.
So from there we go into once we've got the ATV, we go into chapter 9, and the party drives to Gungaga
Mm.
towards the next reactor, and I think we get like a little bit of Kate Sith's background here, but still vague on what he is.
I'm just going to go ahead and say it because we haven't said a lot about Kate Sith since he came in, but I love him and I love his voice acting. I don't
Oh,
play
the
with him
voice
as
is
much,
so good.
but the voice is like perfect.
It's awesome.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I know in remake it was offsetting just or like because he like shows up in one cutscene and like it's never really explained. So that's another one of those instances where they kind of expect you to know what's going on.
mhm. That just see that, okay, so Kate Sith is paying attention at this point and watching over the party.
Yeah. So I mean, I did end up like liking him more than I thought I would throughout this game.
Hmm. All of his, I think we get, I can't remember if it's at this moment, but he starts giving these like fortune telling moments where like everything he says is what it comes true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically tells you how the game ends in like a like really like coded kind of way, I guess.
Yeah. I when I played the original, I don't think I was on board enough with the absurdity or weirdness of Kate Sith, but now,
Mhm.
like, he doesn't make sense. Like, why they're you talk about like just abandoning like narrative logic and stuff. Like, why would you let this dude in the party? Like, there's so many red flags, whether or not it's Shinra or just some kind of weird like temporal things happening with like Pixar breaking into your real world or something.
We had
It's
a pet
just
dog,
so
and now we needed a cat.
it's just like what is like someone needs to like turn around at some point and look at the party and go like what's going on here, like this is getting weird, guys. Like soon it's gonna be like a slug and paper mache horse or something. And so anyway, but I don't know, now I'm just like I love the weirdness. I love the ambiguity of his character, and then he controls so weird and fights so weird in the actual party, with his move
Yeah.
set and like how you have to use the Moogle. I don't know. It just was really refreshing to me, like that they put like most games don't put that much effort into like even the main character and how they design and how they work. So I just thought overall, like, he was amazing. The voice, but Barrett, you're absolutely right. The voice acting was just every time he said anything, I was like drawn into
Yeah.
it. So yeah,
Yeah. It made me happy. I didn't
Yeah.
use him as much in battle just because there was a little bit more of a curve to him
Awkward.
with having to switch between the
Yeah.
Moogle and stuff. But
Mhm.
when I did use him, I felt like, because I know he has stuff that makes the ATB gauge go up fast, and like he's
Mhm.
definitely a really good party member. But I think at this point in the game, I was afraid of change, and I had gotten comfortable with fighting with certain characters, to where like he was such a mix-up that I didn't spend enough time playing as him until like you had to play as him.
Mhm. Yeah, he's quite literally like a wild card, because like some of his moves are even like just doing random spells and stuff like that. He rolls the dice and
Yeah.
all that. So I really didn't play as him a ton, but I did keep him in my party a lot, and I also thought him and Aerith were like the best pair for some of their what are they called, fusion attacks or something like that.
Oh, their synergy
Um,
abilities.
Synergies, yeah, and stuff. They had some of the
I
funniest
bet.
ones.
I bet those were
Him and
fun.
Barrett too. Him and Barrett as well are just hilarious. So anyway,
Mhm.
but yeah, sorry Brandon to interrupt where we were
No,
at.
no,
So
you're
we're in
good.
Gongaga now.
Well, actually, before going there, I wanted to mention while we're in that desert area, like the one mini game kind of section that they bring up that was probably the only one I tried once and then never went back, and that was the Cactuar mini games. Like I remember
Oh,
telling,
God.
I remember telling you, Barrett, like the tip for
The proto relics.
yeah, for using Yuffie
Okay.
for that. But like
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
I did the first one, I'm like, I'm not doing these.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
I got
I'm right there with you.
the Yuffie ones. Once you told me that, the windstorm thing,
Yeah,
I was like, and then I literally like went back to it and 3-starred it. I was like, got it. The Aerith ones were harder because you had to switch between the light and the dark kind of deal, and you had that bubble. But once I figured hers out, like I got pretty good at those. I didn't. They weren't my favorite. Like if I was to rank the proto relic missions, like all the crap you have to do for those, that's definitely my third least favorite.
yeah,
But that helped me be better with Yuffie and solidified her place in my party.
yeah,
So
for
I ended
sure.
up not hating them too much. The character, the NPC that you're dealing with down there is the goofiest looking character, though.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, who is
Dobby,
that, by the
Hood
way?
Dobby. I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute now that you opened this can of worms.
It's like the cool Dobby with like Dobby got some new clothes. You know what I'm saying? He is a free elf now. And
We got
So
more
what
than
is he? Okay, like he showed
I
up,
don't
and I was
remember.
like, I missed some canon here.
Yeah.
I was like, this. He had to be significant in the original game, or he's some other Final Fantasy thing I didn't play. Do y'all, or is he just Is he just who he is? And I'm just supposed to be like
That one I
Case
don't know.
look normal compared to this.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
guy.
that guy
I was like,
just polar opposites on the wildness scale because
yeah.
he
When
just
I looked at him,
his
I thought,
crazy nose and his big ears and a beanie and like Kingdom Hearts shoes.
yeah, I was like, I bet he's the most powerful character in the game. Like that's I did think that at one
Yeah,
point. I was like,
yeah.
I was gonna, like, One Punch Man.
Did y'all finish those proto relics where you have to
No.
fight him?
No.
I did, but I don't remember
He
too much. Didn't you?
challenges
It was in a
Cloud to
one-on-one.
fight. Yeah, he
Yeah, it's like a
challenges Cloud to
one-on-one
a
fight with
one-on-one.
I remember having to use some weird tactic to do that, but yeah, he was.
Boxing gloves too.
I'll tell you what I did love. Yeah, like I don't have too many feelings about him. I just thought like he showed up and like I thought the most proper reaction from the characters would have been just like sheer terror, like just screaming, like what the hell is
Yeah.
this thing? But I will tell you the music. Barry, you talked about like one of the Chocobo songs or in one of the earlier chapters just being
Oh yeah, I
like
forgot
such
to
a great
mention
beat.
that in this. Yeah, dude,
And
that's
the
still
music.
my favorite song in the whole game.
Yeah, the music had a similar vibe, but it was like a techno-y type of remix of like I can't remember which one of the themes it was, but it was so catchy. I can't wait to listen to it again. But it had such a great energy. But that was worth the misery I thought of this quest, which I did not enjoy and I was not good at. I did clear with Yuffie the highest score, but like then once I realized like Aerith you have to do this with, and Aerith to me is like the most obtuse character to like have enjoyable combat with. And probably just because I'm not good at it, but yeah, I was like I gave up on getting the high scores at that point. So
Yeah. I think the only one I didn't get the highest score on was the last because the last one I believe you use Aerith. And because you use Yuffie, Aerith for each of them. And then the last one I think I got like 1 or 2 stars on it and I was like good enough. I'm pressing through at this point because hers is definitely more challenging. But
Yeah.
I found her fun to play to an extent. Like I found combos with it that I liked, but because first part of the game it was her and Red that were in my party for a good bit of it.
Yeah. Overall, didn't like those, but the one thing I wanted to mention about those was, and I didn't play this game until after I beat Rebirth, but it was. I don't know how intentional it was, but it definitely felt like a nod to Shadow of the Colossus with how you find all those different areas. Because you raise it up and then it shoots the laser beam out. And then so like I played Shadow of the Colossus like right afterwards.
Teasing Cloud about the whole like cactuar pose and everything, and then the last one it happens to Red 13.
Anyways, from there we go into Gungaga, and when they arrive at the village, Cloud mentions that he feels like he's been there before. But as they're stumbling into the village, they're surrounded by a bunch of villagers, and we're introduced to Ch9, which was she in the original, or was this added?
Which one? I'm sorry. Which character?
Ch9.
I don't think she was in the original.
Gongaga is such a small part of the original that I don't remember her being in it. They really flushed out Gongaga in this game, making it a giant playable area like it is. Yeah. And honestly, as much as I love this area, like so much, it was probably the first sign of fatigue. And of me playing this game. It was the first area I got to, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to take a break. The dauntingness kind of started setting in as how the exploration of the area being as like it was, we're having to find certain mushrooms to get on certain platforms and all that stuff with the Chocobo.
Didn't like that.
I remember it was the first area that I was like, after I played enough around in it and got through all the story beats in it, I pressed on to the next area and did some stuff, and then I came back. It was the first area I did that in. Instead of trying to like do as much as that it would let me do before moving on, I was like, I'm just gonna have to come back at this with like, you know, a
Dude,
fresh, a
straight
fresh
up.
mental state.
Yeah, at that point, I was ready for a linear area. I was like, you've given me so
Yeah.
much game. I haven't done the past two open worlds. Like, I
Hmm.
hadn't done even the proto mission at that point, and all that. So I was like, it wasn't that I like was bad that it was there, but I was just like, please just give me some like running down some alleys, fighting some.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like Gungaga was such a small area, like to where I barely remembered it. In the when it showed up, I was like, I don't think they added this, but I had to like refresh my memory. But yeah, I felt the same way. I think I got the summon, and that took a while, and then I was like, I'll explore this later. I will say the music once again, the Gungaga music is like the best Lion King
Well, they're
like type
spec-
music, man.
specifically mentioning the music. There's like one specific moment. They're like when they're first all introduced. Like Cisne thinks Cloud's somebody else, and like
Yeah.
there's like they play her theme from Crisis Core, which is like Under the Apple Tree, but like it's modified a little bit with like a few guitar chords at the very beginning that sounds a lot like The Price of Freedom.
Yeah.
And I thought
Dude,
it was
that
about
got
to start
me.
playing it. Yeah, I thought it was about to start playing it. But and I'm glad they added her. If she wasn't in the original, I'm glad they added her to this section because she was in Crisis Core. She's like the one Turk that Zack actually bonds with, and it in a way it kind of tells that story where they were on vacation together when Zack uses the umbrella and everything. And it kind of tells you that like everything that went down with Zack, she kind of like broke off from the Turks and
Yeah.
and Shinra
And it
at
led
that
her to
point.
go home and protect his hometown, essentially.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, it was
and I
that.
don't know if it ever mentions it in this area. There is a moment where she sees Kate Sith, and he's like shushing her, so it's like she's aware of what Kate Sith is. At least it implies it. But I don't think she ever mentions to any of the other members that she was a Turk. I can't remember, but I don't think she does.
I don't think she says anything about her past with Shinra. Um, because I thought, I mean, there were definitely moments where it kind of it says a little bit more about her, but like it, I don't know, it's kind of surprising. I do not remember her in the original game. I could be wrong, but if I when I see Cisne, I just immediately think that's Cloud's alternate love affair in Crisis Core, or not Cloud, Zack's alternate love interest in Crisis Core.
Yeah,
Because if it wasn't Aerith, it was going to be Cisne, and Cisne obviously has like a lot of care for Zack to, you know, go home and basically protect his family, who in this area we find out are just hopelessly waiting for their son to come home,
yeah.
which is just a heart wrencher.
Because I mean, at this
That was
point, it's only been what like 5 or 6 years or so.
Yeah. Um, this, I don't know, this area like had a lot of like just really good moments to just help solidify Zack in the story of Final Fantasy VII more than the original did. Like going home and seeing his family, and you know the way that they talk, how proud they are of their son, and basically are told that he's not coming back. I don't know. It was the heavy moment. Um, and also I can't remember exactly what happens, but there's a moment with Aerith and Tifa and Cloud here where you start really seeing the seeds of doubt that Tifa has, that Cloud actually remembers how things went down.
Yeah, Cloud sees Aerith entering Zack's parents' house, and I think Cloud goes in too, as like they're kind of like finishing up their conversation, and Cloud kind of hears Zack's name, and obviously that gives him a few like flashes Um, and then outside, Aerith starts like kind of detailing her history of Zack with Cloud, and like explains that you know, she still has feelings for him, obviously, and this point kind of like made me mad at Cloud because and I get why he's saying it because he's just, you know, just being supportive, but you know, I guess she's kind of like asking for advice on what she should do, and Cloud tells her to forget Zack, that he's likely dead, and then that he's a loser for like leaving her behind and all this. And I'm just like, dude, you have no idea. But like, I instantly thought of you because I'm like, ooh, Barrett's gonna be mad about this.
I mean, it kind of for years is why like I always was like I've always said and it's a hot take apparently, but Cloud wouldn't be shit without Zack, and he don't even know why, you know, until way later. But like his angstiness and just the way he is, like, I don't know. I connected a lot more with Zack's character than Cloud's, but a lot of it's because I remember the first 10 to 15 hours of the game more than I remember the end of it. You know what I mean? Because like it's been so long since I've fully completed 7. But yeah, that part was just a shut up, dude. Stop talking.
From there, Cloud like leaves the area to go sleep at Cisne's house, and that's when I don't remember exactly what's said, but I know Tifa kind of looks at Aerith and says something along the lines of like he's starting to remember, or like he knows Zack, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I think
I didn't have too many thoughts here. I just enjoyed the story. It was a lot of things I wasn't familiar with, so I was just kind of keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before Cloud goes to take a nap, I'm sure you enjoyed rounding up some chickens.
The best mini game in the game right here.
Might be the best part of the game, period.
Just like an annoying. It almost reminds me of the cat mission in remake where you got to round up all the cats in.
No, that was infinitely better, dude. That was so much better.
Because you know, like the first time you do it, you're like, there's a chicken like 15 feet away. You got to herd it, and you're like, okay. Yeah, and then you realize quickly that if you get too far away from it or whatever, it just runs off. You're like, oh my god, okay. And then it goes a little bit further and a little bit further, and you're like, this sucks. And then it does the one where it's like out in the wilderness, and you find it, and you get to that chicken, and you're like, don't tell me I've got to herd this thing all the way back.
Yeah.
Oh, and you don't, like, right? That doesn't something happen.
No, it quickly like has like something shows up, and there's like a boss fight or whatever, or like a mini boss fight. But it was like at that moment, I just started laughing because it's like,
it's absurd, dude.
I realized like how aware of itself it was. Like it knows that you're going to be dreading this.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me with it was initially like I started having dread. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to do this, but then
it was almost when I saw how far you had to go. I almost was like, I'll come back. I'm not doing this right now. That chicken will be there whenever I decide.
I did come back.
Yeah. But I will say they kind of made it bearable in the sense of like it wasn't too hard, like it was just like time consuming and tedious.
This wasn't
because
fun.
I've done similar missions.
That's the most unfun part of the game.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, I've done the same like similar mission in other games, and it's like one wrong move and you got to like start over. So like it wasn't like that kind of dreadful.
It did start backing up though. It would like trail off if you got too far away from it, which you kind of learned quickly not to do. But you're also trying to fucking hurry. There's no reason this takes as long as it does.
Yeah.
I mean,
but yeah, it wasn't hard. Just a very self-aware, annoying mission.
It was
only for them to cook them. Like only for them. Like,
yeah.
It's like you were leading those chickens to their fucking doom.
And they had names and everything too, I think. So like,
Well, you got to name them. It tastes better that way. It's like, yeah, talk about absurd, dude. Those side quests, they didn't even
There was also the
proofread.
one where you help. You go to like Zach's old training grounds, pretty much, and you like help out like one of his old friends that like looks up to Zach.
Yeah.
You know, he's from the same town, and he had left to go be a hero, a soldier for Shinra, and like you just meet this guy that was, really, I don't know, like looked at Zach like a mentor, and I love the just the trend or the like Cloud helping him as Zach would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the side missions I gotta go back and do because I don't know if I was like under leveled or whatever at this point or if I just had the wrong game plan. But in that side mission, you have to fight some mastodons and like
Hmm.
they just like constantly like charge you. And
Yeah.
I could never finish it for whatever reason. And I was like, I'll have to come back to this later because I don't like I said I don't know if it was just like bad strategy or what, but I felt like I was under leveled.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it's a cool little mission. Is just another one of those things I like that solidifies his character in the main story.
And
Yeah.
from there, Cloud goes to take his nap, and then he's waking up by uh, some like loud rumbling coming from the reactor. Um, at this point, I don't know exactly like. Cisne kind of explains that she's like been able to see the whispers, um, which hasn't really been explained like who can and can't outside of it seems like it's you know to do with some kind of connection to Eris. So it's like people that have like come in contact with her, but it's still not been explained. And even with this one, it's not really
Isn't there a
explained.
moment at the beginning of Remake whenever they're first flying all around Aerith and Cloud can't see them and something happens and then he can see them?
Possibly, yeah.
She, like, she grabs his wrist, I think.
She
Yeah, or
touches him
something. Yeah, she
and then all
touches
of a
him.
sudden he can see them.
Yeah.
So it was like there. I don't remember there being a section here where like Cisne interacts with Eris.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe she's got
Yeah, I don't know.
more of a connection to the live stream than we know. Who knows? I don't know.
Then at that point, pretty much the guys in the group split up, leave the girls behind, and head towards the reactor. I think once they get to like the little car park area, they see a vision of Sephiroth like float into like the underground passageway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this section was a little challenging, but okay. Like going through that whole uh, control center, and
Hmm.
I know like I remember there being like a lot of good items to pick up, but I didn't really enjoy the fights all that much.
I definitely had a hard
Yeah.
time with the specimen fight.
Yeah,
Um, I think I think I beat it the first time, but I remember it getting so close, and like I think it cuts like right before you beat him and switches back to the girls,
yeah,
and then you're kind of like go back in time a little bit and have to press forward.
yeah.
I feel
That
like.
that was kind of. I think they got there in a different way because there was like some grappling sections, but it was like you
Yeah.
essentially you go through that whole area, start that boss fight that Scarlet appears and drops that specimen down, and then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of complete that boss fight, and then it goes back to the girls, and like you pretty much got to retrace the same footsteps that you did to get there. So it's kind of like replaying the area, but there were some changes as far as like traversal.
Y- Yeah, you're maneuvering through it differently, and you go a different path than they did, essentially. But I don't know. I remember every time that this kind of thing happens in this game, where you do something with a certain set of characters, and then you almost go back and do it all again with a different set of characters. I didn't dislike it, but I did struggle with it as far as like the pacing. It's just one of those pacing things where it's like, oh, I've got to do all that again.
Yeah.
Pretty much, with characters
Mhm.
I use the least. So I
I'd say
understand what it
that.
does for each of those characters, but I don't know. Just as the player, I remember it just slows you down. You're like, oh, good God. Here, okay, here we go.
I will say this game's got like some of the best, if not the best, 3D models for like bosses and stuff like that. And I was always impressed, even if it was a boss like the specimen. It's not
Mhm.
like the most fun to fight. Gosh, the detail on it is just looks like it's just incredible how
Yeah.
good
Oh,
the
yeah.
artist did. And I was looking at the old models too. How good of a job they did translating the original bosses and stuff. Where it's just updated versions of it. It's really just nuts. Um, but yeah, I don't remember the fight too much beyond just how the boss looked. To be honest with you.
And he flies around and you're stuck on that platform.
Yeah,
And then I
sounds
think
about right.
eventually Scarlet starts maneuvering him or something.
Well, before that, like after you defeat the specimen, before it kind of takes over the girls, like there's another um, there's another section where like Cloud sees Sephiroth and it's like trying to corrupt him, which like kind of sets it up for later that the ladies get there and then they start a boss fight with Scarlet and her mech and
That's yeah.
and you pretty much have to like only thing I really remember from that fight is like you have to constantly like attack the appendages of her mech so that like it gets rid of some of her weapons.
Hmm.
Um, so then, go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick in the notes here. I didn't remember this whenever I was playing it, but I'm seeing that the big attack that Specimen had was called Memento Mori.
Oh yeah, it was one of those that was like felt like it was like unblockable. Like you couldn't do
Yeah,
anything to get away from it. I remember dying from it a couple times.
that is the name of one of the main guns I use in Hunt. That's why that
Mm.
skipped out. My brother didn't catch it. But that's all.
So from I guess near at the end of that boss fight, um, Scarlet destroys this platform that Tifa's standing on, and at the last second, Tifa like grapples onto a ledge, and Cloud seeing this kind of like goes into a rage and just starts like killing a bunch of Shinra dudes. Um,
Yeah,
which
like brutally, like cutting him
Yeah,
up,
Mercs.
the blood on the face, like just loses his shit.
like,
Yeah.
and I get the significance of that,
It was
but
that
there's
fist pumping, like, yeah, look him
yeah,
up.
I get the significance of that where it's like Cloud
Mhm.
becoming unhinged and just like brutally
Also,
murdering these people, but it's like how many people have you used special
Yeah.
moves on throughout
I
this
knew you
whole
were going
game
there. Yeah.
where it's like the only difference here is they show a little bit of blood and that makes it serious.
okay, here's what I have to say about that. A lot of people got really mad in Remake whenever they got rid of the blood trail in Shinra. Whenever you go in the Shinra facility and you're following basically the path of like whatever has broken out and mauled and killed things. In the original, there's blood everywhere. There's blood on the ground, and then you eventually get to where President Shinra is killed with Sephiroth's sword in him. But in Remake, in order for them to give it I think a T rating,
Mhm.
they took the blood out
Yeah.
in that part. So a lot of people got really mad about that little micro detail that, takes a little bit of the brutality out of that moment for a remake that should be, just epic and awesome all the time, I guess. So I felt like personally that blood splatter on the face was yeah, we're not fucking around this time.
Oh no, I definitely agree. Like they used it for, you know, to show that they mean business in that specific area. But it is a little funny that like Tifa's like pleading with him to stop, and it's like,
Yeah.
how many people have you killed along the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've done this. There just wasn't blood before, so this is what
Yeah, that's the thing. Narratively, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
and
We've been
I
hunting
knew
down this whole time.
you knew the story they were trying to tell with it, but I'd have to see him like hacking someone's legs off in chunks or something to slowly kill them to kind of get why this was such a problem. But it was kind of like, oh, he's just doing it with a bad attitude.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's not
And-
using the blunt side of his sword anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He's yeah. Oh, it's serrated. And, you know, it's like so. But I get, you know, it's hard. I think it's hard in games too. Like a lot of games where they try to convey that like the character's doing something savage, and you're like, I just murdered like 300 people in cold blood and just kept on moving like it was nothing. So yeah. It's just another thing we had to abandon it. It was a little hard because I was like, so what's he actually doing? Like, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And
Right.
all I needed to understand, though, was he's not being himself,
Mhm.
right? And that's really what it came down to. So, yeah. But I do agree with you, Brandon. It's just kind of like, yeah, what about all these other people? All these animals we've murdered, all these squirrels we killed, you know? It's like,
And a lot of them unprovoked. Like how many of those like groups of enemies you just run straight to and start killing
Yeah, they weren't fucking with anything.
them?
yeah, you just like literally stood where they were eating, and then they get mad, and then you're like, "Oh no, you didn't! How dare you retaliate against me?" Yeah,
But at that point, like the whispers of Sephiroth are telling Cloud not to trust Tifa, and this part was a little hard to watch because it definitely does pull like show you that Cloud's like losing it even more, but he strikes Tifa off the ledge, and it's kind of weird because like you just see that. Like he's like hacking through those Shinra guys, and then he hits her with a sword, right? But it doesn't
The
seem
blunt side.
okay.
Yeah, the back edge of it. Flat on
yeah.
the back of it. It's just, or maybe the wind of it. You know, maybe
Yeah.
she missed it, and the wind of it blew her off the edge.
Yeah, it actually it might even do like a close up of where like she's like backing away from it or something, and it's like just barely grazes her. But
Yeah, because like Sephiroth is basically feeding him that. How did she survive that whole ordeal in the Nibelheim reactor? Like, how is she? Like, really
Yeah.
think about it. Like, you thought she was dead,
yeah,
and now she's alive, and you know, in one piece. You haven't seen. I don't think he's seen the scar at this point. But we've met the doctor that supposedly healed her,
yeah,
which that wasn't convincing enough for Cloud because he's not fully in control. But like, yeah, it was just it is a hard to watch moment though, because like he just cut up all these Shinra dudes, hacked them up, got blood on your face. You cut Tifa, and I mean it just, you know,
knocks her off the sledge,
Karaga
and
off
then
the edge, you know.
and then you watch her like this weapon emerge and like swallow her whole.
Yeah. Which
And,
I love this part of the game.
Yeah, I did too.
Because we're
Live
definitely going to
streaming,
see the live stream moment. We're definitely going to see more of this later. This is kind of it. They did more with that earlier on in the game than that normally happens because we get a live stream moment later with Cloud. But giving Tifa the knowledge of the live stream, I think, is really going to help later events with Cloud remembering and like Tifa's help along the way.
And like, does any of the rest of the party kind of see all that take place?
Her getting cut and thrown off the edge?
Yeah. Because
I feel like they did, but they don't really like, you know, it definitely is not like they're holding it against him.
which they
later on.
totally should.
That's true.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like
Because I mean,
This
up until like the last chapter where like Cloud mentions that he's there for Barrett as after the whole Don situation, like Barrett's still kind of on the fence about Cloud.
mhm.
And
This, yeah, you
So,
think
like,
this could have
seeing
made
this-
him be like, "Whoa,
yeah,
not cool. That's my girl." Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't remember if
think-
they were like where they were at in like context of this moment. Like, if they saw it, I feel like
I
they were right
believe-
behind it.
I believe they saw it. Yeah, and they just kind of act like, man, he lost control. Okay, like that sucks that happened, and not like,
Yeah, 'cause
hey,
we've all
my
seen him have
best,
those weak
like,
moments, but not. to this
yeah, but they treated it just like another weak moment, and just the problem they had to figure out together with him rather than put him in a cage. While they figured this out. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little strange how they're handling Cloud's complete breakdown.
They're elaborating on it so much more
yeah.
Mhm.
to make.
For sure, it's not just like a little.
I'm going to talk
twitch.
more about it later about just this is really we've seen a few moments, but this is really the beginning of us seeing like a dark Cloud, Yeah. Oh shit, he is not fully in control. It's having us question, our main guy even more so. Like, how much are you even in control of at this point, And he is basically throughout the game doing the same thing that the robed guys are doing. He's following them, but
Yeah.
we see him being more in control because we're controlling him. But every time you see those robed guys, you're like, yeah, go that way. And I don't know. It's just part 3 is gonna hurt for a while. I know it is. It's gonna be like this moment, but we're living it. I don't want to do this. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So-
pretty tragic. I think the thing I was worried about most was like, yeah, how is it? Like, you knew Tifa's probably not going to die, right? So I was just thinking, well, this is just going to suck for the relationship dynamics. But it really,
She's never gonna go on that date with me now.
yeah, but it really doesn't. Like, they don't. There was not a ton of follow through there. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I think we'll see bigger repercussions in the third game for more of his spaz out PTSD moments, whatever.
But
Yeah, I agree. I didn't really think of it as much in the moment, I guess, but thinking back on it, it is more like, wow, they were awfully forgiving in this moment.
Yeah.
Sure were. Got some good friends.
Everybody.
Maybe you got
everybody. I mean,
friends.
Jack or Cloud even got kissed after this.
Yeah, it's kind of like
sorry, it was a one-time thing.
if only we could have seen this coming. The third game,
Yeah.
like when he kills everybody. Man, oh shoot! I wish there'd been some kind of sign. He seemed okay. Yeah, I mean, he acted a little funny
I mean,
sometimes.
there was that one time where he knocked me off in the nasty green
Yeah, he
water,
tried
and
to,
I got
like,
ate by
kill
a
me,
fish,
but-
a giant
but,
fish
like-
that took me on the ride of my life. But other
He
than
was
that, I mean,
supreme.
it was a learning
Yeah.
experience, and I'm a better person because of it.
Exactly,
So really, I should
dude.
thank him for that.
It's like they're so well adjusted that they're not well adjusted.
Yeah.
It's like these were red flags in your relationship. But he's a good guy. Yeah, whatever.
So as
Still love the game.
as Tifa's swallowed by the weapon, she starts hearing voices, and I think it's kind of revealed that she's encased in an orb of materia somehow after being swallowed,
Mhm.
and you're essentially traveling along the live stream, and you can access
Guided by the
No.
whispers, right?
and you can access a few of the memories. That I guess
his memory.
a few different pivotal moments. I guess for her it's all different pivotal moments between her and Cloud.
Mhm.
And It says after the memories reviewed, Sephiroth reveals himself amongst the Dark Whispers, plunging his sword into the materia that Tifa's in, nearly hitting her. And I guess it's like it breaches the seal of the materia that she's in, like she can't breathe.
It looks like Sephiroth is in the live stream
Yeah.
and manipulating it himself. And I think this is where we see more of a motive between the White Whispers and the Black Whispers.
Yeah.
Okay, answered some questions about like, yeah, what those whispers are, where they're coming from, what they're doing, like on a really basic level.
It's almost like white blood cells, and he is the sickness.
Mhm.
You know, like within the live stream.
Did it make you guys okay? I had a moment, and it could have just been that I failed to like connect the dots, but there was a moment where I was kind of like, wait, I don't know whose side I'm on when it comes to the whispers. I felt like there was a little bit of ambiguity where you weren't sure, or I felt I was unsure to some degree, which whispers are the ones I should really be supporting. Like, hey, what, you know, yeah, Sephiroth obviously is on the side of these dark whispers, but like, why, right? Is it just his same motive from what I understood from the original game? Or are there new motives that he has after perhaps observing events that we've all been familiar with, right? Like what's the big picture? I think is kind of a thought I had, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some twists, but I also wouldn't be surprised if I'm just like way over analyzing it in my head. But did y'all have that thought at all?
There's
at any
definitely
point, like
there's definitely some confusion there because, you know, from what you get in remake with the whispers, it's like these whispers are just trying to make sure that the timeline pretty much happens the way it's supposed to.
sure.
And
The
I don't know if you consider like all those whispers from the first game all to be dark. So if those whispers are trying to fulfill the timeline, why would Sephiroth be with them unless he's finding a way to manipulate them? Because
That's what I think.
it's not until the white ones show up that they're trying to like change history essentially, or at least fight against what Sephiroth's doing, which, you know, ultimately still kind of forces some events to happen as they're supposed to.
This whole game had me questioning, is Sephiroth eventually going to be the one doing the right thing and no one realizes it? Like, are we just going... Because it kind of goes back to that thought. I don't remember if we've talked about it on here, but like, there's moments where I feel like there's different versions of Sephiroth. And the Sephiroth that we see in this live stream moment, I feel like is a version of Sephiroth that like is the same one that, you know, at the end of Remake that's like tells Cloud 7 seconds till the end, like is basically like almost hinting at like we should work together to fulfill this. And there's moments where that seems like less of a join the dark side kind of joke, you know? And
Yeah.
this, I don't know, like I definitely like in the back of my mind, I feel like there's moments throughout this game and little moments of Sephiroth and the whispers where I'm like, did we just not realize he's trying to fix something? Or is that, you know, I don't know. It definitely seems to make you like really question like what is he up to? Because all the like hauntings of him through the different robed guys seem like the bad version of Sephiroth, which, you know, if there's even saying that, if there's even a good version, which who knows, but there's also a version of Sephiroth that seems like he's trying to do something greater, and I don't know. It all I don't have that all together right in my head, but I definitely like thought I definitely thought along the same lines, Nick.
Yeah, it feels almost like, I think we mentioned this in a prior episode, but it feels almost like the writers of the game are trying to manipulate you into second guessing things the same way Cloud is, and it could all be BS, right? And it could just be, oh, we were played, Sephiroth's bad and he's just trying to screw with our heads. But there's part of you that's going, do I have the full picture? Do I really understand what the full goals are? Is there going to be some curveballs later? So they're doing a great job, I think, of keeping that ominous and making you go, well, maybe is there a reason? And it would be, it's cool either way. Either A, it'll be like, oh yeah, there was a lot more, or B, no, it's pretty basic with the motivations, but they sure made you keep guessing about a narrative you thought you knew all the way to the end. But yeah, it's interesting.
Like, this is probably way off base, but like it's like that one that's in the live stream is trying to find some sort of balance, that version of Sephiroth. And the one that we end up fighting in the end is like full blown dark side.
Hey, how cool would it be if the Sephiroth we always known as bad is really just Genova in disguise of Sephiroth, and the good Sephiroth we knew is dead or not dead now, because
Genova
that goes
using
back to the whole
Sephiroth's
Genova
likeness to manipulate Cloud into thinking that he's the bad guy. Yeah.
Well, because Sephiroth's kind of in a way just as good and bad as Cloud is, right? With what he's going through, he's just on the deeper end of being manipulated by those cells, perhaps, than Cloud is. So I don't know, there's just a lot of possibility there. Fun to think about. I don't think there's a lot of evidence to like necessarily that, but it is a direction they could go in, based off of I think some of the new lore they've kind of set up.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's all there is, right?
Yeah. This is definitely like a new moment though. That's like setting up.
Yeah.
The actual live stream moment, and I think it's just gonna make that part almost like
yeah.
So big. Yeah, it's gonna be so good.
I'm curious. Maybe we shouldn't elaborate on because it's down the line, right? But like, I'm curious how you think it'll be different than the moment we've now already gotten, but that's maybe just a topic for
not to like give too much, but like I don't know how much it'll be different, but I think that it will just hit as hard as it was meant to, if not harder, because we're getting more. It's more that each character is just being given more depth.
I got you.
Yeah, I just think that like Cloud's big revelation is gonna be a heavy one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that is that moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, giving Tifa an understanding of the live stream ahead of time is really going to help them really land that big live stream moment in part 3.
So the weapon brings Tifa back up to the surface, and this is really the only like interaction that the team has, I guess, regarding what just happened. But it's just like Cloud's kind of in a daze from all of it. What he just did to Tifa, and like watching her get eaten essentially. All Barrett really does is kind of like slaps him out of it to kind of help out. So they get back to the village, and as Brandy said earlier, nothing a nap can't fix. Tifa takes a nap and
a nap and some mushroom soup.
Speaking of the mushrooms, speaking of the mushrooms, I did like at the very beginning of the village where like you kind of get like a PSA from Red, where he's like telling Cloud not to be eating any random mushrooms he finds in the forest. It just felt like it was like a PSA or something.
Yeah.
But once
real quick, I'm gonna let you keep reading on, but I gotta do that thing where I've gotta pee. Okay. But I'll hear you, so I'm gonna keep up. But I gotta run to the restroom real quick.
All right. Tifa wakes up from her nap and speaks with Cloud privately, and she which I don't fully. I feel like part of this may be a little bit of a front because the only thing you really see in their past is, outside of the the water tower moment or the like Tifa kind of affirms that Cloud was there for her when no one else was, and I don't necessarily know that from what we've been told that we can really agree with that because all we really see is like Tifa with her friends and Cloud feeling like he's like shunned away or like shy, whatever the case is. So like outside of like the moment in on the water tower or whatever, we don't really see much of that earlier of those earlier moments when he's there for her. But I think this might be like the first time though that Cloud kind of voices his own doubts about who he is and what's happening to him. But Tifa assures him that the theory they have of the cellular degradation that's going on isn't going to happen to him. They nearly have their kissing moment, but they're interrupted. So from there, we kind of leave the village and head towards the airstrip where we meet Sid. And that's the end of that chapter. We also get a cutscene of Hojo experimenting on Roche with some like purple substance in a petri dish.
Yeah. Poor guy. It's got to happen to him, though. You know, he's a soldier. He failed his mission. Now we got to do some tinkering on you and make you better.
Yeah. You did mention the point where Tifa references the Cloud, was there for her when they were kids. I did like going back to just kind of that flashback that we see. It does give Cloud more character, right? Because you don't always get a vibe for like what his personality is or would have been, but it seems like he was a really shy, dorky, sensitive kid, when he was little, who didn't necessarily have the easiest time connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I think that does help make more sense of his character currently, and on top of all the BS he's been through and stuff like that. But it made me like Cloud more. Not that I didn't like him, of course. I think he's a great character, but the kid version of him in those brief moments, and at least how Tifa looks at him, helps make sense why there is some more tolerance and patience for how he can act sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah.
Maybe she was. I mean, because she makes him promise to basically save her if she ever needs help or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, like Brandy mentioned that in the chat, and I'm wondering if there was a moment that kind of like led her to want that protection from him, or if like maybe she just she saw something in him and was trying to, because like you said, he's just kind of a shy person. Maybe she's trying to help him with a little bit more of his confidence or something, or maybe there was a moment that led her to want that. But
yeah,
I feel like he is bottling up that he failed to help her whenever she needed it, whenever Sephiroth allegedly killed her, and he's like battling with that moment of like, I saw you die, Sephiroth's over here on my shoulder telling me that you should be dead, and I saw that happen and I failed you. And kind of a part of his trauma, in a way that like maybe he really did want to be the one that saves her or whatever, and he doesn't really remember how those events played out.
Yeah,
Feels like
possible.
he failed her. But I feel like in that moment, like Tifa gets hurt and Cloud rushes Sephiroth, and Sephiroth, that's the moment where he picks him up on the sword and he like pushes himself off of it, so like right after he failed, he went through some insane trauma right there. Like getting stabbed and pulling himself off the sword. I don't know, like just something to.
Which I mean, and even in this game, like according to the way Cloud recounts the story, like seeing
He doesn't
Tifa-
remember that.
Yeah, seeing Tifa
Right.
like supposedly dead's kind of the last thing he remembered. From that
Exactly. Yeah, so like that's where everything kind of starts to fade out for him.
Mhm.
Because it's not long from there that they get captured and worked on by Hojo as well.
Yeah.
whole,
You said the next. Oh, sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say like the you know we meet Sid here at the end of chapter 9, and just because it got brought up earlier, like if there was anybody that would have been voiced by Troy Baker in this game, I figured it would have been Sid. So,
Yeah, I could see that.
but I really liked his character, like what they've shown here at the end of this chapter, because mainly just he's like one of the only ones that's like willing to, I guess, kind of banter back with Barrett, where
Yeah.
Barrett's kind of like giving him shit for working with Shinra, and then Sid's like, I'm my own man. I just pick up these jobs because I want money, essentially. But yeah, I do like Sid, and I did like that dynamic he has with Barrett.
Hmm.
I like that a lot too. Yeah, I thought up until that point, everyone just kind of turns their head down in shame whenever Barrett does it, and it's like, yeah, no, I do what I want to do, and that includes not, caring what you think. And Barrett doesn't even have much of a response for that, But it starts, but it does help because it paints the world in a different light. Because if you just went with the perspective of Barrett or the characters in the party, it would just seem like the whole freaking world is evil, right?
Yeah.
In a certain way, and then you start realizing, like, that's obviously not the case. But like the original game, I remember feeling kind of like it was them against the world. But it's really, there's very key people pushing this thing in an evil way. Everybody else is just trying to live their life and make the best choices they can, and I think Sid kind of touches on that, right, as a character. He is quite a caricature of like southernness, I guess I would say, which is it's interesting to see that portrayed in a game, especially I guess a Japanese game, developed where it's like we're kind of close, where we're right in those geographical areas, so we know what it's more like actually living around people who talk like that, or kind of like the farmhand culture or whatever you want to call it. So sometimes it makes me roll my eyes a little bit how they portray him, but overall he's just a good character, and his like class is really cool because I remember he's kind of built after like that Dragoon class, I want to say, more or less, in the Final Fantasy series, where he's got the spear. He's got like the jump ability, I want to say. So I was really looking forward to seeing him, and I'm looking forward to him being in the party.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So from there we go into chapter 10. Party's on their way to Cosmo Canyon, and as they're essentially like walking across the bridge into Cosmo Canyon, Red rushes ahead, and
Here we go.
they
Here we
recognize him as Nanaki, and
Yeah.
at that point he just kind of like, I don't know if he forgets or he just kind of
That's
like
part.
doesn't
care.
care
He
anymore.
just immediately drops the facade with
Yeah.
no, just totally. I don't know how I'm trying to describe it, but
They
him-
killed
way
the
he
old
just-
Red in that moment. They just
Yeah.
killed him. They just shot him. Dude, straight up, they killed a character and replaced him, and I just had to work through it
It hurts
emotionally.
that they got such a good voice actor with a great range, and I love Wise old, Red 13.
Rough,
Like his
yeah.
voice acting throughout the game up to this point was awesome. And what
Mhm.
makes his voice acting still awesome is that it's the same guy. And he just
Yeah.
has a crazy range like that. It sounds like an old man voiced him in the beginning and a child voiced him later on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a part of the original game that something about his demeanor changes once you make it to Cosmo Canyon. But this was a lot more in your face and blatant than that. I wouldn't have imagined his whole voice just changing that drastically. It was a drastic change to his character, and he's more childish and kiddish, and it's almost like Going Home brought the kid out in him. But like, I don't know, why has he been talking like a wise old man all the way up to this point to try and impress the party? I don't know.
It made sense. It was just so jarring. Like, it still makes sense. I get it. I get the story they were trying to tell. I understand why he did it. But like, it would have been cool. Like, we just played so much of a game, 2 games, where he's this one character and it changes your perception when he starts talking like a Sora or something, like this squealy kind of kid voice, which is more or less fine. But like, I think something that would have helped me is if they had where his voice cracked in like in remake, and maybe throughout where he had these moments and they were like, "What's that?" You know, he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
nothing." Like, start of alluding that like he's pretending. That I would have helped me ease into it, and you know, that's just my personal preference. I mean, how they did it is cool, and I'm okay with it, of course. But yeah, it changes your
how
perception.
they could have done it better, but that's what I feel like what would have made that not hit so jarring.
Yeah, like maybe he
alluded
saw
to it a
something in
little
the other. Yeah, he saw something earlier that he got excited about and forgot that he needed to pretend. Or even if he said things that were really immature, but in his deeper voice, like, you know, that's something like a kid would say or something, you know. But anyway, it's just at that point the old character was gone, who you understood him to be, and his temperament.
It's almost like
and the
he
new
died
character.
right there.
Yeah, it really was.
They
So
give you
he
like
could have been
taste of it later,
schizophrenic.
but like I wanted,
Yeah.
like there's a point later where he's like telling a story or something, and he uses that voice, and you're like, ah, yes, like I missed that red, but
Yeah, Brandy's playing it right now in the living room, and she literally said she just got to that part. So we're probably helping her through it emotionally, where we were just like just kind of shaking,
Yeah.
just like, what's happening?
yeah,
you
that
know.
part definitely was like, it was a weird, you know, it was weird. I was like,
Like,
wait,
okay,
what?
wait, that was fake.
Is he
Oh.
is he faking now? Is this fake? You know, like I
No.
just didn't
Oh,
know what to
dude.
believe at that point.
Trust gone. Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
did such a good job too that it's almost schizophrenic, the level of performing he did. But you
Well, I'm
know,
worried for Brandy. Just remember, if you're at that point, we're
she
we're gonna
knows.
start, we're gonna
Yeah,
start
she'd be
spoiling some
racing.
stuff, so hurry up
You
because I
see
want
it
to start talking
narrated
about
in real time.
Mr. Bald
Yeah.
Guy and I can't remember his crazy name.
I mean, I kind of agree with you to an extent about maybe there should be hints, but at the same time, it wouldn't have felt as big of a moment if it wasn't that jarring. I don't know. Like,
No,
part
I
of
get
me like welcomes
Kudos
that.
to whoever made the decision to be like, and
It
here's
was
the new.
brave.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a brave
Man, it's
choice.
like, listen, it's their story, right? So
Mhm.
I just try to appreciate it. But
There
you're
may
right,
have
maybe they
also
wanted it.
been a trailer earlier on and lead up to the game that showed his childlike voice, because and I don't remember picking up on it whenever it happened, but I do remember either seeing or hearing someone being like, yeah, I don't know about Red 13's voice in this game, and then playing the game and being
Interesting.
like, sounds great, I don't know what you're talking about, and then hitting this point I'm like, oh, maybe that's what they were talking about. So I don't know, maybe not, but
I do like the older, wiser, like more badass Red. Like that's what initially made him one of my more favorite characters. But at the same time, after seeing like the cruise ship scene, at that moment I'm like, okay, this guy's Scooby Doo. And
Yeah, who is
like,
this guy?
this childish voice like sold that even further. So
Yeah.
like he's still one of my favorites, like regardless. So I don't really have a problem with it.
I got
in that
used to
sense.
it.
Yeah.
It took after Cosmo Canyon to get used to it, to be honest. All through Cosmo Canyon, I was like, "You fucking liar! Like
I
you
think
lied to me
that
this whole time."
what bothered me is the deeper voice was perfect. That's who I always imagined Red 13 to sound like. I thought it
Yeah.
was a great job of him. And even though you find out he's more playful and less serious around his people, obviously we got the localized version in the States where they didn't convey that originally. So yeah, that deeper voice is always how I imagined it would be. That being said, like I'm on board with it. I really liked the younger version of Red 13. It was just a very different character overall, and
Yeah, because
not
then
who
he
I
seems
understand.
to have lost that knowledge that he seemed to have
Yeah,
carried early on. It was almost
right.
like things that you would think he'd be aware of or know or approach more, in a grown-up way. He just kind of his character changes too, not just his voice.
Yeah. Well, and it's what's more frustrating than anything is like the opinions of people who really don't like it or really do. It's like I have mixed feelings about it. People are like, "Oh, they ruined the character when they changed his voice, and I can't even play as anymore." It's like shut the hell up. It's kind of how
Yeah,
I feel about that. It's like I get it. It was a hard transition, and it was surprising, but it's not the end of the world. You know.
right.
And in some ways, and I think we'll talk about this, he's a better character for that transition with the rest of the chapter. But before we go deeper into it, I was going to say, like, Cosmo Canyon was, like, to me, the best area in the game. Not only that, but the freaking music straight out of Toy Story that plays
Mm,
throughout the world. It reminded me so much of, like, the Toy Story and the Toy Story world from Kingdom Hearts 3. Um, and I loved the battle theme too, just the general battle theme that picks up, and it's like this super high, twangy,
yeah.
fast-paced music. So I loved the area. I thought it was one of those best-looking areas in the game.
It
It was
was.
an area I was looking forward to for all the reasons that we'll talk about, but like, yeah, just it was like I just loved it. It was so much fun to explore.
It was probably my favorite of the whole game.
Cool.
Exploration wise, it was definitely one of my favorites. I think Nibelheim ended up being probably my favorite spot,
Mm,
but we'll talk about that later.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so we get the flying chocobo in this area, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do.
The gliding race chocobo
Those
thing,
are a
which was
nightmare.
Yeah.
kind of had the same kind of vibe as like Gungaga, where I was like, man, they are really getting like puzzly with how you get to certain
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I loved being able to glide, but the gliding mechanics themselves, I still haven't figured out how to capitalize on them in a way to like really make that thing soar. Because some of those mini games you do, I'm like, how do I get these loops?
Oh
And
yeah, hit
I
all the
got
point circles. You have to dive and
yeah,
come back up and all that
yeah,
stuff,
and
and
I
it
got a
doesn't work
vibe
half the
for
time.
yeah, like I got a vibe for like, oh, I could be better at this and I'm not. And I just wasn't really ever willing to invest like figuring out how to control it in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But from there, like you know, Red drops his facade because he feels like his commitment to the group's over, and that's why. I mean, and I guess that part too is like why he just kind of drops everything. Like he doesn't need to keep up that facade anymore because he thinks he's done. Um, but later, through Bugenhagen, we're kind of told that in order to become this Watcher of the Veil that Red wants to be, he's got to go through a trial, and he's got to have assistance. And I think, I don't know about you, but I feel like they kind of, because of where his story kind of ends up there, I think they kind of send him with Barrett because of Barrett being kind of like the one fatherly kind of figure of the group. Um,
Before that, Bugenhagen. I thought that when we got to this point in the game and we go talk to Bugenhagen, that's where a lot of revelations come from in the original.
yeah.
And I honestly think that he is one of the main characters that I don't know if I liked too much what they did with him. Because,
Really?
like, yeah, like, he just didn't know as much as he did in the original. I feel like he had more of an understanding of like the live stream and how things worked. And I mean, it was a very spiritual place still, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we were going to get revelations getting to him. But the main thing that we learned about him is that he's been lying to Red 13 his whole life about saying his father was a coward pretty much. And instead of like telling him the honest truth. And I don't know, it's like, it was a weird choice, I guess, save revelations for a later time. But I mean, I don't know. Like, he shows you the planetarium and there's definitely history about things there, but there's certain questions that you ask him and he just has like no answer for. And I don't remember him being as like unknowledgeable in the original. He was, I don't know, pretty aware of the state of the realm. And yeah, and just like, I mean, we'll start talking about it a little bit more too, because I know there might be more that you'll want to talk about, but like before this point. But once we go into Red's trial and where that leads, I don't know. I just didn't like the constant doubt that Red was thinking that his father was a coward, and whenever they were getting attacked, his father ran. And they've just
But
let
he
him
thought he-
believe that for years.
But he thought he was a coward in the original game, didn't he? I remember that. So that's why but I know they told the story differently this time, but I remember
don't remember.
he was surprised when
It just may have
he was-
stood out to me this time. Like,
there was some differences, but I just can't remember. Yeah, I think you remember some of that more clearly than I do.
I didn't catch it as much, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
I
the difference
gotcha.
between a game that's all text and then
Yeah.
something that like
Yeah, I was
every
just gonna say
character's
that.
conveying emotions in a totally different way and a more realistic way. Like, there's definitely
Yeah.
things that I'm realizing I probably didn't catch in the original because I didn't study that game like a lot of people have. But it's always,
But I think you're right though.
Final
Like
Fantasy
it didn't
VII
make. I did pick up on it in the original game, and it didn't make sense then either. I was like, this guy's been like taking dumps on his dad, for years, and I don't remember it making sense. I remember it being emotionally moving, what happens, what he discovers, but it's like, why couldn't he have known this sooner? I will say another thing about Cosmo Canyon though is, I liked the changes they made, and I didn't like them. Like it's just kind of double-edged sword. I liked that it kind of was this touristy place, like it was like Rock City almost. Thought that was kind of cool, and in a different way. And it still hit all the beats of why I like Cosmo Canyon for the most part from the original game. But I will say the thing it did surprise me a tiny bit, because the original game, it was a lot more isolated place with much, obviously, technology probably limited this, with a lot less NPCs or anything representing much society in that area. It wasn't, I don't recall it being a touristy type of feel to the attraction, like a Golden Saucer type of area or anything like that. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting change that honestly made sense for how they built out the area, and that it was this kind of academy of knowledge and stuff like that. But that was a little different than the vibe I got from the original area. The original area seemed a lot more toned down and somber and stuff like that. So either way, I thought it was cool. Like, I was on board with the changes. It was just interesting the direction they went with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know necessarily that it felt like touristy, because they definitely were like kind of on guard, but
Mhm.
there was like a religious, like, culty kind of aspect to it, because I mean, their whole thing was the whole planetology stuff. So
Yeah. That's a
so
good point.
they were definitely. It seemed like there were a lot of people there, but they were kind of closed off to everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, design wise, this whole area was like one of my favorites, because as you're going through Bugenhagen's place, like, you can interact with the different items through there and kind of learn about that whole religion essentially. But yeah, into the trials, you get to the boss fight with Gina Tak, and it was probably my favorite boss fight of the whole game, mainly from like character design and everything, because it has like that like tribal,
Yeah.
It was a
tribalistic
hard
kind of
fight.
design. Oh yeah, it was definitely like one of the harder fights of the game for me, but at the same time, it was like the first time I felt like I really used Barret the right way. Because you had to use what was it, steel skin, and
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
taking
Lifesaver.
lifesaver and steel skin, where you're taking all the damage, but he's got like 3 times the amount of health. But it was
Yeah.
just one of those things where like it took the pressure, where like you could just play as Red, do what you need to do. Barrett's going to like
Yep.
shoulder all that, and then he's the only one that you have to worry about healing up or anything. Yeah, it was definitely one of my favorite boss fights, and some of the different like mechanics of it, where he shoots out like this orb that kind of gives you like a countdown of like when you're gonna die or when it's gonna hit. So it
Yeah, but
definitely
instant kill.
it
Back
definitely
out,
gives you like some urgency of like getting it done.
Mm-hmm. I like basically how Red and Barrett's relationship evolve after this moment, because you'll notice that he never calls him Red again after this moment. He
Yeah,
calls him by his first name after like going
I've
through
noticed that.
the house. And
yeah, I don't think I picked up on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, because it was just kind of awkward whenever he called him the Naki. But thinking about it as if like he went through one of the hardest things that Red's ever had to face, and it helped them grow respect for each other in a way.
Yeah, I always felt like they were kind of buddies, but it was good that they were together too, because I kind of feel like Red's accent change once again was motivated quite a bit by Barrett's presence, because he's probably one of the oldest characters in the party and the most serious and stuff. I kind of feel like without him saying it, he wanted Barrett's respect when they first met, and to be not treated like a kid. So it was good that they had that
They're technically
that dynamic.
And
in the
Oh, right.
the two
No,
leaders
fair
of the
point.
party. So
But I mean, like I said though, I think it was specifically Barrett, because he is the father in the group, and
Mm-hmm.
this whole trial is pretty much Barrett's being the father that Red doesn't have or doesn't know what's happened. He's like
Yeah.
kind of witnessing all this, so that when they get to the end and find his like Red's father encased in stone, like it's explained that one of the Gi arrows of this character you just fought is what like solidified him, and and he finds out that this truth was kept from him so that he wouldn't like run after. And like I said, I think there is some issues with that, because they say they do it out of protecting, but there is some of this where it's like shouldn't be held or withheld from him.
yeah, like he's just been down there encased in stone all this time, and the whole time Red's looked at him as a coward.
But there's a sense that he's still alive, because there's a teardrop that drops
Yeah,
out of
that's
the
the worst
statue.
part.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Yeah.
Like somebody used a gold needle on this dude. Like, come on. No, I know it can't break out. But sometimes I like when that happens in stories where it's like, well, they could have done it this way, but they didn't. Because I feel like that happens a lot in life. Like it honestly does, where it's just like, if I could have just been told this thing by my parents, or if this relationship had gone this way. But that doesn't always happen. And like, even though it like sucks for Red that he didn't know that, it also teaches him like a ton of humility for like his assumptions about what happened and why it happened and all that. And it's almost like this feeling that what's the guy's name on the floating materia? The
Bugenhagen.
Hoga, what is it?
Bugenhagen.
But yeah, I'm not gonna remember that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like he's also not gonna, nothing ever really put the thought in his head that his dad ran away. He kind of just formed that narrative in his head, and you can tell that like Budenhagen doesn't want to just, tell him what he should believe. He lets him figure it out on his own. So there's like a lot of complicated dynamics there. I don't know if that's like the best way to do it and stuff like that, but sometimes you see stuff like that in real life, and you let people figure stuff out on their own, and he kind of did that. So yeah, I thought he ended up growing up a lot more by learning the truth for himself. So anyway, that's one way to look at it. I don't know if
so much though. Like he basically like that was his father figure after his father was gone.
yeah.
I don't know. I'll never not struggle with like how much Red looks up to him and how Bugenhagen like kind of kept his truth from him. Maybe he wasn't ready for the truth or something, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's some,
get it, yeah.
And it could also be some of the localization of like how, like that keeping that truth from him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe was supposed to help him discover more about himself before he could learn the truth. And,
hell, maybe it was the fact that, hey, your dad's still alive. But
but we need a golden eagle, and those are rare in these parts.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know that either as a kid. Like,
yeah.
I think you do, but no. Like, yeah, he's still alive. But
I think it would have made Red better to know that what his father sacrificed, and to know that he's still there. And I feel like it would have helped him try and train to be. I don't know. Just
maybe
doesn't matter to. I guess that's how it's done. So yeah, the gi.
So yeah,
a lot there.
Oh yeah, you have the counter to the Cetra.
Yeah, we from that scene, Bugenhagen tells Red that he's part of being the Watcher of the Vale is that his journey isn't over. He's got to go back with the party, and as they're leaving, Ginatak in like his bipedal form, the boss you just fought, like he shows up, and I guess they go on a little boat ride to, I'm not sure where, if it's like a different realm or something, but leads them ahead, and I think it transfers like the scene over to so this I think is the big moment with Zach and Biggs, and they're kind of sharing their near-death experience and how they're surprised they're alive, and Biggs kind of shares that he has some survivor guilt, and I think that's when they like start. I think Biggs is like trying to recruit more members to Avalanche, and I think they get to a point where they go to their meeting spot, but nobody else shows up.
This is Kyrie comes back up at this point. I don't know if we've talked about her at all.
No, I don't think we have.
I'm not trying to be negative, but she is awful.
Who is she?
She's the one that's like faking being a soldier.
Oh God, yeah. Never mind. I remember.
She's even got like the pop song that plays whenever she's on screen.
It's the worst. Yeah.
crazy.
Because she's in a few of the areas, and we've definitely it's been easy to skip any interaction with her, I guess. But yeah, I was just gonna bring her up and say like, I don't really like that character a lot.
Yeah. I don't think you're supposed to. And they did a good job.
Yeah, they did a good job making me not like her because
She's
she
the
was
real villain.
She's like Dark Yuffie or something like the
yeah.
version of her we don't like.
She's always causing you problems too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's real dense.
Well, I think
She's
in
just
remake
not-
she just like blatantly lies or like spreading like the Shinra lies
Oh, yeah.
about the group.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
And then she also like takes missions and then hires Cloud to do all of her work for her, and then
Yeah.
takes
Yeah. Yeah, she's a real fool. That's no way. There's no way two ways about it.
So in that scene, Zach and Biggs are talking before Zach goes back to Aerith's house, and at one point he goes in to check on her and holds her hand, and at that point, like they're in the boat, and Aerith like senses something in the current day or whatever.
So this is where I remember thinking, okay, some stuff is definitely happening now that I do not remember at all in the original. And I was eager and excited to see what happened next with this part.
Yeah, I don't remember what I thought about there being the connection, but I did like Zach. Zach is basically going back and trying to keep all the old characters like positive, being a positive light in terrible times for both Biggs, Marlene, and Aerith's mom. You know, Biggs is questioning himself and purpose at this point, and Zach kind of talks him back up. So, I like that.
So like I said, back in the present, Aerith noticed that, and then they arrive at the shore where the Gi are kind of explaining that they didn't come from the life form, so they can't return to it. Meaning, I guess they're somewhat invincible. Whether that means if they die, they become like a ghost
They
or
die
an evil
black.
entity, or yeah. But that they're
Wait,
that their ultimate goal is to no longer exist. So I guess they mention that they're searching for the black materia, I guess, so that they can die in peace, essentially.
yeah, nuke the planet,
Yeah.
more or less. What? Okay, so the Gi, help me understand this. So this is where I got a little confused. So the Gi from another planet? Where are they from?
So because everything of Earth belongs to the live stream, is a part of the live stream, and I can't remember if it alludes to where they came from or if they're not from there, but
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Shinra
figure out.
enemies of them because either maybe they didn't believe that they were a part of it, but they seem to believe that if they are not one with the live stream, they shouldn't exist. That they make enemies of each other.
Well, I thought the main reason that the Cetra really become enemies with them, and we'll get to this probably in a later chapter some more, was that they wanted to get the black materia. The black materia was the main reason that they were like in opposition of the Gi, because that would, obviously destroy the planet along with it, while understanding the Gi just want to be put out of their misery. But I guess my main question was, just trying to figure out where the Gi came from, right? I'm trying to. Yeah, maybe that's left ambiguous. I got the feeling that they came a long time ago with Meteor.
It's still open to cover what that is later, where they
Gotcha.
came from. But this part, basically, they bring up the importance of the black materia to them, because, and I think the Cetra knowing that, plus the fact that they're not a part of the live stream, they didn't want them to destroy the world,
Right.
but they definitely didn't want them to be a part of it, causing like kind of a great war in between them.
So what did you think of this plot line, Barrett? I felt, to me, this was definitely in the timeline that Cloud and them are actively in, and not the Zack timeline that's happening. This was like really new territory for me in comparison to the original game. I was on board with that. I thought it made sense and did more with the Gi. But did you like it?
I did like it because up until later truths, you're to believe that the Cetra are these, these great beings. I mean, Aerith's essentially. So like, you have this high respect for them, giving them kind of a counterpart, and also seeing some negative, judgments in a way coming from the Cetra towards the Gi, and this misunderstanding of like, they have their own beliefs and the Cetra have theirs. There's just a nice counterpart to add to the Cetra's history, like I liked it. It shakes things up a little bit as far as like kind of making you questioning who you trust more, what side is right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely liked it too, but it definitely adds to a lot of the cloudiness of it all, the ambiguity of it, because I mean, like you said, Nick, I mean, they're wanting this black materia, but they only kind of state that they don't want to exist anymore, but it doesn't really delve too deep into what that actually means, in the sense of, well, is it a nuke on just all of existence wouldn't exist anymore, or is it just something for them? Is this to like blow up the live stream in some way? Because then you see that Cloud has the vision of Sephiroth, I guess, heeding warning too, and Cloud kind of snaps out of it, and he's like telling the rest of the party, he's like, well, we're going to play along for now to hope that we can get to it too, but we're not going to let them have it. But there's not really like any clear indication outside of just that deception from Sephiroth of like why they shouldn't be allowed to have it.
Yeah, you're right. At that point, there's not a lot of clarity on why they can't.
Like in eternal torment. So they are, I guess, the one thing that can, like, their immortality, the one thing that can destroy them is the black materia. But the black materia summons Meteor and destroys everything. And that's not the ultimate decision that anyone wants made. So,
but the Gi aren't upfront with that information yet, right? Like, they're just like, the Cetra just didn't let us have it, and they betrayed us. It was like, well, no, the Cetra might have had a good reason.
The notes that I have that we're looking at says that they speak that the materia can free them from their eternal torment. And as you continue on the path and emerge, or the Gi affirm their ultimate goal is to no longer exist. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on if you know what the black materia does at one point, because because if you played the original, you do. If you haven't played the original, you don't understand, you don't know, but they want it, and their ultimate goal is to not exist anymore. So this materia must do something pretty epic to help them get to that goal.
Yeah, I guess my point is just that the party, no one in your party understands yet what the black materia
they don't
does.
know why.
But it is like, okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to make sure I remembered.
But
was
Cloud has a vision kind of towards the end of this that Sephiroth basically is coaxing him to bring him the black material.
Yeah, gotcha.
And like as they're leaving, I think it's either Barrett or Yuffie or Cloud that's like, we're definitely not giving them that, right?
yeah, it's Cloud, because he gets a vision from Sephiroth that's like, I don't know if it's necessarily deceptive in the same way it is with Tifa, but like, I guess Sephiroth's planting those seeds that he wants that materia. But it just comes out of it where Cloud's like, yeah, we'll play along for now, but we're not going to let them have it.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though. It's interesting, like, why Sephiroth doesn't necessarily want them to have it. That also made me re-question motives. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Maybe he wants to be
Like,
the
wait
one.
a second.
He wants to be the one to pull the trigger. He's not going to let these
Eh,
random people living and hiding under the world have his.
Right.
You know,
It could be as simple as that, or it could be as
why did he
complicated
want it?
as
What are his motives with
yeah.
it? Yeah, it does make
Exactly.
it adds it, and it's a new cog in the wheel of what's
Right.
going on because this is totally new territory.
Right. Right.
Like adding that with, you know, knowing how it ends, why, you know, if essentially the Sephiroth we know from the original and these Gi want the same thing, why is Sephiroth coaxing Cloud to bring it to him instead?
Yeah, like how much does it matter? And if so, why? I think are the questions.
Maybe selfishness, which would make sense.
Yeah, it could be that, but that doesn't make
But
all the
there's
sense.
so many different Sephiroth moments that just make you question motive. That's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
wow, you're acting here seems different than how you were acting, you know, a few hours ago in this other moment. And I don't know. Yeah.
I think the most wild things that the direction the story's going is making you wonder if it's going to reframe, and maybe it already is, and I'm behind the curve on this, but if it's going to reframe the original game and what was happening. Oh, this thing was happening, and why Sephiroth was doing it or wasn't doing it, you know, is now put into an entirely new context where even if you go back and play the original, you're like, oh, these little moments that were kind of obscure, now it's like, oh, there was some stuff going on now that we know, you know. So anyway, we'll see.
But this kind of rounds out chapter 10, where the group are told that this black materia would be held in a place of worship. So they all assume a temple. And then I think Bugenhagen clarifies that it wouldn't be a temple, but instead just a site of general importance, though it's well hidden. Which, to some degree, maybe this is just like the video game aspect of it, but I don't feel like it was well hidden, because you pretty much drive a plane straight to the plane straight to it. So
To Cosmo Canyon?
no, like, so once they, well, I mean, this is like later on, but like from the end of chapter 12 into chapter 13, like you get in the plane on the water, and like it's pretty much just a straight line back to where you're supposed to go. Like I said, that may just be the video game aspect of it, but it wasn't as hidden as it seemed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
But this takes us into chapter 11. I figured, based on the conversation involved, it might be the last chapter we cover this session. So there at the end of chapter 10, there's a robed figure that shows up in Cosmo Canyon that's muttering Nibelheim. So party decides to head back to Nibelheim, and I guess they're trying to go back to the reactor and then the manor to see if they can find any hints on what to do next. And they arrive back, and it's kind of funny that like Shinra's kind of came in and pretty much after the town was burned down, rebuilt Nibelheim to be like exactly what it was before.
This is new.
Out,
It's not the ruins of Nibelheim.
yeah, outside of just like it being like a rehabilitation center for all these rogue figures, which they're all seem to be going there anyways. So I don't know if that's intentional on Shinra's part or not, but it's like, well, they're all here, so let's just
Ocean
round them up.
has a factory like right there. You know, just convenient.
Just pumping them out.
I really like just introduction to Nibelheim. The exploration of this area was my favorite.
It was good.
Story wise, Gungaga is my favorite area, but definitely not maneuverability wise. This is my favorite area to just run around in. All the the chocobo you get, every time you get a new chocobo in the game, it's just gradually better and better and better. And on the first playthrough, you're not sure. Like once you get kind of tired of the maneuverability of one chocobo, you go to a new area and you've got one that does something totally different. And this one was just really fun with the jet flying and the different little caves that you can explore. And I really, really liked it.
Yeah.
The main things from this area that I remember is like number one of the side missions where you have to track down Tifa's old cat.
Yeah, that wasn't a highlight. I do remember it though.
And then
Stays in her old house with that lady.
yeah,
That's helping out all the.
I think she ends
The
up letting, like,
degenerates.
she lets Cloud name it, I think.
What were you saying, Brandon? Sorry.
I was just like, I think that mission kind of ends with like, I think Cloud names the cat too or something.
Like Fluffy or something.
Yeah.
Basic.
Yeah. Man.
And then another thing is when you go into the hotel area, like Cloud has a vision of Zack walking up the stairs. So then he gets a flashback of when they were sitting in the hotel before all the reactor stuff went on, of the conversation they had then. It was like pretty much like the last moment that Cloud kind of had as himself, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of getting stabbed and saving Tifa.
Then we get on the way up to the. Is it on the way to Shinra Manor or to the reactor where Cloud is basically reminded? He thinks he knows what happened to Zack.
I can't remember yet.
That's it. I think that's at this part where they travel past Nibelheim
Yeah,
and they pass by like the river, and Cloud has this memory that Zack fell in the river and he died. He never
Yeah,
found.
Tifa's like, "Shut the fuck up." Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's like, yeah, let's not share that with the group.
Yeah.
While also realizing that Cloud does not know what happened.
Yeah.
You know,
Really
but neither
like-
does she.
and I guess though at that point, yeah, Cloud thinks it's Zack was the one that got swept away in the current, but and then at that point Tifa's like, yeah, I knew about this all along. I wanted to protect you or whatever. Same. I guess similar story with Red, but it was just like, yeah, I'll tell Aerith when we see her again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about that time too, you get a cutscene of Rufus in Shinra where Heidegger tells them of like Wutai attacking, so that kind of like prefaces the whole venture through the reactor as you're like seeing all these different Shinra and Wutai soldiers dead everywhere. And then that leads to like the next thing I remember, which I don't think I went back and went all the different ways, but like the whole pipe system where like going down different paths got you.
Oh
like,
yeah,
certain rewards and
I
stuff.
forgot about that.
Yeah, that wasn't too much fun.
I did like the design of this area a lot. The sharp, cutting mountains and stuff. That was always really distinct, and even in the original game and the cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, when I got that chocobo, my son Odin came in, and he was like, "Oh, it's like Mario Sunshine." That's the first thing he said when he saw the water jet thing.
Jetpack.
Yeah, they were the most. That was the most fun I had on the chocobos.
Well,
I didn't mind collecting those chocobo balloons or whatever they were.
Did y'all collect all of them?
I did.
Did you have
Not
trouble
right
finding
away.
the last one, or was it?
It's a
I ended
couple.
up having to look up a fucking map because there was
Yeah.
one I missed, and I traveled that probably for like an hour looking for the last one. I was like,
It's gonna gutter.
dude, it was like up next to the town. You go under a bridge and turn around. It's the only way you can see it. Come back this way, and I don't.
Yeah.
When I found it, I was like, how did I miss that? Like
Yeah.
I've been over here 50 times. How did I miss that? I was so mad at myself.
It's funny.
Because I was like going through all the different cave systems and all those islands like multiple times, like,
Mhm.
you know, paying attention to where I'm going. I'm like, there's no way that I've missed one. Like this has to be a glitch or something.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it too. Just the exploration in that area was like refreshing and fun. And like I had mentioned earlier that my first like exhausted feeling of the game was whenever getting to Gongaga and like traversing that area. Before I completed, or before I even went to Nibelheim, like go to, from Gongaga to Cosmo Canyon, and I did everything there. And then before I went to Nibelheim, I was like, I'm going to go back to Gongaga. And then I finally did everything there. So I'd gotten over that exhaustedness. And then I go to Nibelheim, and that was like, okay. So like I put the game down, and I don't think I played it for like 1 or 2 days. But then when I played through Nibelheim, it was awesome. Other than the mission to get your fucking chocobo in that area was the worst.
Yeah, that did
By
suck.
far. And I'd mentioned this, I think, in the first episode of this review, that some of the things that you have to do to get your chocobo in each area definitely wasn't my favorite. Having to do the throwing the greens in a certain area while the different things are blocking and going up and down. I did not like that at all.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
that was definitely
Yeah,
one of them where, like, when I got
See,
there,
that-
I stopped for
just-
a while.
What was
Like,
that?
that was definitely one of them where, like, when I had to catch it, I didn't really understand exactly what I was supposed to do, so like I got frustrated with it and just like, oh, I'll
Yeah.
come back to this another time. Like,
Yeah, like the stealth missions for a few of them were kind of sucky, where you had to like crawl behind things and wait for them to change paths and stuff. This one was a whole new kind of suck with like having to time it, and like the throwing mechanic of the greens just not being that good. And for a while, not understanding how you're even supposed to do it, that you need to go up on that upper path and guide it from one side to the other. Like, I don't know, just there's some things that I felt like tried to intentionally slow this game down whenever it didn't need that much slowing down. Like I would have much rather have gone to this area, went to the ranch, got my chocobo, did some side quest for the ranch guy, instead of having to go find every single chocobo in each area. It's like me and you have talked about it, Brandon, like the chocobo retrieval in the originals. Not a star part of it.
yeah.
And I mean, maybe like to pay homage to the original, and want to make it too easy to get your chocobo, because that would just take away from it. But I don't know. Some things seem like pacing for the sake of pacing, and they took one unfun way to get chocobos and found another fun to it.
Yeah. Yeah, the game requires a lot of patience. Is one thing I realized. Like if you come into it just like ready to rush into all these different parts, like you got to be ready to like experience the game as they designed it.
It's being like 80 hours at this point too, and you're going through this with a chocobo, and you're like, good God.
Yeah.
At some point, you want the pace picked up a little bit, not too much. I didn't want to like breeze through the end of the game, but like
Yeah.
stuff like that. I
I
was
like
like,
that the area was a little smaller, right? The open world piece. Well, maybe not smaller, but it was a little bit like more vertical, the caves and stuff like that. Because I was like, hey, I wanted to be like talk to the developers and be like, I'm good on open worlds. Like, no more. We're good. Like, I still got a couple left. You guys did plenty. Don't need any more. Stop.
improvement progress on part 3. And let's just like we can go back to those areas, but I don't want everything done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, give me that linear section. Anyway.
So here we get the diabolic variant boss fight at the reactor. It's like the one with all the tendrils and stuff.
Mhm.
And then after we beat it, we get the ID card that we came to the reactor for. Get back in touch with Kate Sith, and party agrees to meet over at the manor.
Mm-hmm.
Which you get there, and I think Aerith, Barrett, and Kate Sith go in before the rest of the party gets there. And you're kind of searching around. I know there's one part where you can use Kate Sith to kind of like roll through these tunnels to access like different levels of Hojo's factory that's at the bottom of the manor. And I didn't particularly care for that part because there was like one section where you had to like throw those boxes into that machine that's moving. So I remember getting frustrated with that part a couple of times.
And the box game wasn't
Yeah.
really. I mean, I guess it had. It was just what they did that in the intermission DLC, right?
Yeah.
There's like a game that's very similar to that.
Yeah.
So I guess they had to put it somewhere. But,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember some of those parts.
So
I guess they didn't stick with me too much.
at some point here, like Hojo, like you go into a room where like I don't know if it's just like a pre-recorded message or if it's just an actual like video call type of thing, but like Hojo knows you're there and has you like trapped in a room. So you have to find the code to get out of there, and I don't know if it's like before or after that, but then you have the yin and yang boss fight.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one.
yeah, that was a cool one.
It was a fun fight.
Then that leads into the a forgotten specimen boss fight. So we just get like 3 like back to back here.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have like the coolest boss fight in the game. One of them.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh, so
Is
yeah, leading into that, like Cloud and his part of the group shows up at the manor. They go through a set of doors where they find a coffin for which Vincent comes out of finally.
Mm-hmm.
He asks why you're here, and just recognizes that the key card you have stolen, but for whatever reason still lets you proceed on anyways, and goes back to his coffin. And
I was so
then,
excited to see Vincent. Yeah.
So then I don't know if it's at this point, but like I guess something said about Sephiroth, which kind of like intrigues him. But as you're going, he kind of leaves you, and you promise not to go to a certain area that you end up going to anyways, which he shows back up and confronts you, and turns into the Galian beast. Which that boss fight was pretty good, which makes me kind of curious. Like, so once we get to play as him, are we going to get to be this thing?
Fucking better.
Yeah. Yeah, because I believe you will. I mean, I don't know what else they do, because you do transform with him and your party in the original game, and there's multiple forms too.
You'd be able to like run in like Clive.
And there's a version.
Turn into the beast,
dude. Straight up.
There's a version of it in Dirge of Cerberus that you can play as too. It's like his like main special power up. It's like that game has that instead of summons essentially, where like you get enough of this. I can't remember if it's like a certain like material you have to pick up or whatever, but yeah, every so often you can transform into it. So then I think Kate Sith tells the team that Vincent was a former Turk, and that's when he's offered to join them.
Did we get any flashbacks of Vincent here yet? Whenever he wasn't hurt.
No, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
do you
think
get
so.
any?
No,
Did we
I
get
don't-
any?
I don't think we do
Okay.
in this game.
I'm getting. I think it's just no.
I know for sure they're. I mean, I remember seeing some. But I know they're from Dirge of Cerberus.
Mm-hmm.
But he's offered to join the team, but he declines. You leave the manor and decide to go back to. You find out information that you need to. You need a keystone, which Kate Sith mentions is back at the Golden Saucer. So as you're leaving the manor, then you leave. Like as you're leaving from there, you have another boss fight with Roche, and this time he ultimately sees his end, and where I think he takes,
Oh yeah.
he kind of, I think at this point he kind of takes like the form of at least to the audience of like this is like the mirror to Cloud in the sense of this is what could happen to Cloud if the cellular degradation does happen to him.
Yeah. I like that we got a soldier, someone still working for Shinra as a soldier, and to counter Cloud's kind of story up to this point, to see like if he could still, if any of them were still working for Shinra, like the path where it leads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Roche,
I mean, also.
the first
Roche-
interaction with him I didn't care for in Remake, and then he just kind of he grew on me. The more we saw him, and the more like of a combination between Zack and Cloud he kind of is.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, I like him too because there is kind of like that camaraderie where like he wants to fight you at your best. He don't want to just like
Yeah.
come in and kill
he's like
you.
go. He's like bad Goku.
Essentially, yeah. But and like the thing about him pretty much degrading is like Cloud watches it too. So
Yeah.
Tifa and
'Cause he
Eric
just,
are
like,
having to
feels-
assure him that it's not going to happen to him.
And that fucks with Cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, and also that Roche he earns Cloud's respect over Rebirth too, and so that's something that helps you like him more. But Hojo got his hands on Roche, right?
Yeah,
And sped up the whole degradation process.
yeah. So then to kind of round out the chapter, we get another scene back in Sector 5 where Lodbrok appears back on a television and kind of decries Rufus's actions as far as like inciting war with Wutai. And I don't know exactly how far this
Basically
goes out
announced
to like the
Public.
yeah, it's like showing the public like hey, Shinra is the one creating all these monsters. So then at that point, Sung informs Rufus that Glenn was an ex-soldier, which I think Rufus already knew because it seemed like they had history. But
I think that is an as you know kind of dialogue, so
Yeah.
we understand who the hell this guy even is. Like, oh, okay, Sun said he's ex-soldier. Good enough, I guess.
yeah. So then at that point, it goes back to present day, and the party notice some smoke in there, so they go back to the airstrip to see what's going on there. I think at that point too, Sid starts questioning Aerith about her mother, and explains like I guess he was the one that kind of brought her back to Sector 7 before she died.
Maybe, but this is something that was kind of weird because of like, I mean, I guess Sid can be older than he looks,
Yeah.
But they also
I
got off
guess.
the train in Sector 7. So, like, they come off the train to Sector 7.
Yeah.
So, unless he took them to where they got on the train.
It could be that. Well, I mean,
Maybe.
we already know he worked with Shinra.
Barrett's mom, though, was like, I don't.
Well,
Maybe
he
I'm not
did.
sure they'll elaborate more on it. Hopefully that's more just like a through line to.
Well, he did work with Shinra, so maybe it was a situation where, like, I mean, essentially he's just a merc in the sense of
It could
like,
be part of why he defected too.
yeah,
You know, he saw what they were doing to innocent, kind people, and he was like, I want a part of that. I
Yeah,
could
and
see it work.
kinda-
It was just like, I don't know.
it seems like he helped them escape from Shinra, so maybe he wasn't flying a plane at that point. He was just, you know, getting on the train, and
Yeah.
so at that point because up until this point, anytime you took the airplane, you technically had to pay for it, even though it didn't really cost all that much. But at this point, he decides to start letting you travel for free. And then at that point, Vincent decides to show up. It says he's got unfinished business with Sephiroth.
What a tease.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I'm glad that I started this game knowing that him and Sid are going to be playable, because
Dude,
I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
let by the end of the game at this point.
yeah. I felt the same way. I was like, there was even still a part of me going, but maybe, yeah, like what if?
And
Like,
honestly, there's even still a part of me that's like, but maybe DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is such a terrible tease, though, because you're like, Vincent's just, you know.
Especially too, because like from there you leave, and I think you travel back to Costa del Sol in order to like go back up to the Golden Saucer. And he even just like gets off the plane at that point, just kind of like standing there in Costa del Sol, just like hanging out.
Chilling.
Um,
It's being
Looking
cool.
like that ass.
So yeah, that's the end of chapter 11, and that's kind of like this intro into. Like I said, I think that's probably where we should stop for now. But I know that after beating the game, this like intro back into chapter 12 is kind of like where the last point you can kind of go back to access all the side content.
Yeah, that's when everything opens up finally, and you're like, even the world is like, oh my god, everything's connected. You know, I can go anywhere on this boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, is it at the beginning of the next travel? Or yeah, it's the beginning of the next chapter. Whenever like your plane has issues and it becomes a boat.
Yeah, because
But-
at that point you can actually sail to all the different. It's like the first time you can actually travel back to any of the other areas.
Mm-hmm. It kind of connects the world.
That was
Yeah.
crazy. Like the water, you're looking at the water on the map, and you're like,
Yeah.
I can clear out all that gray. Dude, my brain broke at that moment. I was like, this was another like, like you spend every time I spend so much time in the area, I'm like, surely there's not going to be anything bigger than this. You want it's like just relaxing and like, it's the traversal, and then you get to where everything is connected. Now there's a whole like pirate section. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I mean,
Now,
you
what
travel
question-
around the whole world in the game too, but like every city is like a little thing on the map. You go-
Yeah.
You just don't think about how this could potentially open it all up for full.
Mhm.
Oh, I want to sell from here to Nibelheim to the grassland. Like go from here to the beginning of the game, and I don't know. It was crazy.
That's cool.
So yeah,
Super cool.
that's where we're at now, and we'll pick up back on chapter 12, probably Tuesday night,
Yeah.
I guess.
It's fun on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
And
End of the game.
And then
Yeah.
it's all downhill. It's all just
we'll,
boom, boom, boom,
we'll
boom.
try to
boom.
get through those
I mean, there's
last three chapters, and then
it's gonna be a dense.
overall thoughts on
chapters.
everything.
Yeah.
But
And what we want, maybe a little bit of like how we feel this next game's gonna destroy destroy everything that we know.
It's gonna be, yeah.
but before ending, I did have like one little interesting tidbit come up here. I got like a notification from Reddit, and as the headline on it is tomorrow, or actually it was actually yesterday, but I don't know why I just now got the notification for it, but it says 5/29 the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth exclusivity ended. So and there's even like an image with it that it's like an official PlayStation image. It's like the very bottom in the small print says not available in other formats until 5/29. So we might hear some news sometime soon that it's coming to PC, or I doubt it's coming to Xbox, but
They need to, because this game did not do as well in certain areas of the world because of its exclusivity to PlayStation. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. So hopefully they give it a PC port and open up the availability to more people, so more people can enjoy this insanely good game, because that's the only
it needs to do well.
It's not doing well because it's not a good game. It's just not doing well because of its exclusivity to a super expensive console that isn't regularly available everywhere.
Yeah. And then to add to that, in like typical Reddit fashion, the top comment on this is, "Oh, that's cool. We'll finally get some more realistic hentai now using these official character models."
Oh, the mod.
Oh boy.
Jeez.
Probably. Of course that's the
exclusivity ending, and the fact that we have a state of play earlier or later today.
Yeah.
And
might hear something about DLC.
I know. We could hear something about
Yeah.
DLC, updates, Kingdom Hearts 4. Something.
Resident Evil 9 got leaked already today. But yeah, just the Village was a.
It's Village 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
They hide the numeral now in the lettering, so it's like they did the same thing. But yeah, 9 got leaked already, and then like remakes for Code Veronica X and Resident Evil 0, I think, got leaked. So
I do like that.
I mean, I believe they're confirmed more or less with these leaks, but it's open to interpretation. Whenever I see a store listing, an official store listing on some other country's website, I usually take that as a confirmation. So, but anyway, we're going to see some cool stuff. Yeah, I would love for them to show a trailer for some DLC, timed exclusive DLC for Rebirth would be awesome. And anything else Square Enix related. But yeah, I'm pumped. And
honestly,
for that.
I kind of hope it's something Vincent related. If there is DLC, like I know Dirge of Cerberus takes place after the conclusion of Final Fantasy VII, but like with the way they did Intermission and the way they remastered Crisis Core, after remake, I'm like, maybe they'll like try to rewrite this in a way to where like a Vincent DLC like before the game comes out, because we did get to play as Yuffie in that DLC. So I'm thinking whatever this potential DLC may be, it's like playable versions of either Vincent or Sid, something along those lines.
A Vincent DLC with flashbacks to his old life.
Yeah,
and
would be a great way to cover that.
Would be a great way to introduce his character to get everyone hyped for Part 3.
Yep.
Kind of like what they did. I mean, it's like what they did with Yuffie. Just give him the Yuffie treatment. He's going to have a totally different play style. So, like, let us feel that out and, do more than just let him look cool.
Yeah.
I feel like every time you see him after this point, he's leaning up against a wall or a pillar or something. Just just doing the thing. Like, yeah, it's coming. Just wait. That's what he's telling me. Just wait.
Yeah.
Well, cool. This was fun.
Well, cool, guys.
Cap it all off.
Yeah. Me too.
For sure.
All right, y'all. Well, chat, thank you for being with us and contributing to the conversation. So we'll probably be back on Tuesday. We'll do a post to let you know what time and everything. But yeah, it's been fun. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you.
See you guys.